All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 20th, 2024 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting of the Environmental Quality Commission with members, EQC members present, city staff, and members of the public. Why don't we start with roll call? And I'd like to introduce staff and EQC members present. In the room, we have myself, Chair Schmidt, Vice Chair McKenna, Commissioners Lorca Headley, Hill, Meyer, and Piligriopar. Commissioner Kissel is away. And then staff present includes Sustainability Manager Rachel Lunder and Management Analyst Liz Tapia. So, Ms. Lunder, would you please provide instructions to the commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Sure, thank you. Welcome everyone to our November 20th meeting. I'll share some instructions for public comment right now. We have public comment cards on the ledge over there. And we'll make a call for public comment before each item, and we'll also have public comment available for folks on Zoom. Just hit the raise hand button. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 and we'll be able to unmute you. And we'll have 3 minutes for public comment this evening. I'll return the meeting to you, Chair.
Fantastic. So under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. While you're not required to provide your name and city residence, it is helpful. The commission can't act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under the public comment, other than to provide general information. Sustainability Manager Lunder, please call for public comment.
Sure, I'll be calling for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you have a public comment, you can grab a card over there and hand it to me. If you are online, you can hit the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you can press *. And it looks like we have one hand raised online and no cards in the room. So we can start with Brian Schmidt. Let me unmute you, Brian, after I'll just unmute you, and you have 3 minutes. You should be able to talk now.
Hi, they had me join as a panelist. Hope that's fine. Whatever works for you all. Brian Schmidt here for Menlo Spark. Sorry, I couldn't come in person today. And the subject I wanted to bring up was part of the climate action plan for Menlo Park. And it's the discussion that 90% of the emissions reductions are supposed to be achieved through direct reductions. The plan acknowledges that there'll be 10% of the city's total emissions are hard to abate and would need to be removed through carbon dioxide removal. There's a relatively short mention of this in the cap. I'm not aware of much further discussion about this. Senator Becker had a piece of legislation to help define carbon dioxide removal and do some initial steps on that. It did not make it through the legislature, but I think it's likely to come back. And in talking to his office, he connected me with a consultant who's working on this, in particular on cities and municipalities that are interested in carbon dioxide removal. So they have some information. There's some other places, other cities that are interested in this. I'd be very happy to share that with EQC. Maybe it'd be appropriate for discussion at a future meeting. It is 10% of the emissions that the city wants to abate. And that's if the city achieves its plans for every other reductions, which, as we know, could be pretty difficult. So it might very well end up being more than 10%. So I'd be happy to send that on to Rachel and share it with EQC, and maybe it would be a good topic for a future discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And since we have no cards in the room and I don't see any other hands raised online, I'll return the meeting to you.
Fantastic. So we will move at a good clip ahead to regular business. And the first line of business is D1. approve the October 16th, 2024 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. Why don't we start with any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take public comment? This sounds like there's none. Ms. Lunder, do we have any public comment on this?
Sure, if you'd like to make public comment on item D1, approve the October 16th Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. We have public comment cards on the ledge over there. You can also hit the raise hand button if you're on Zoom, or *9 if you're calling in. I don't see any hands raised or cards in the room, so we can close public comment.
Fantastic. Why don't we open it for EQC discussion and motion on D1?
I move that we approve the minutes. I'll second that.
Fantastic. Ms. Lunder, can we please state the motion?
Yeah, we have a motion by Commissioner Headley and a second by Commissioner Hill to approve the October 16th, 2024 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. And we can just do group voting, so all in favor? Aye. Great, the motion passes with 6 in favor and 1 commissioner absent.
All right, fantastic. Why don't we skip D2?
No, we're gonna do D2.
All right, so we are moving on to D2. Recognize Chair Schmidt serves on the Environmental Quality Commission, and Commissioner LaRocca Headley will introduce the item.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Well, it is, I'm just so thrilled that we have our first promotion from the EQC to City Council here in Chair Schmidt, so we are. It's very exciting. You're gonna be great.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to say a few words and then we'll do the official thing. So we joined the EQC together 2.5 years ago. So I feel like we've kind of been like brother and sister in this whole journey. And it's just been such a joy to serve with you. And the things I really appreciate about how you've shown up is you're an incredibly hard worker. Like you're willing to do the hard work and stay late to make sure the thing happens. You have an incredible strategic mind and you're so good at building coalitions to make sure that a big important thing is carried by many people to move it to the finish line. So I have learned a lot from you in the community collaboration sessions and the CAL FIRE grant and all the urban forest stuff. And I really look forward to seeing what you're going to do in terms of leading the city going forward. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
I too have some remarks.
Oh, but wait, I think we officially have to do a public comment and then we'll have EQC discussion and then we'll have a toast.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
Unless there's any clarifying questions on this presentation. No questions. Okay,
Go, Jeff.
I can open for public comment, Chair.
Sure, please. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I do see a hand raised online, and if you're joining in person, we have public comment cards over there on that ledge. And Brian, I'm gonna try to see if I can just allow you to talk without promoting you to a panelist. So we'll start public comment with Brian Schmidt online.
Good evening again, Brian Schmidt. I just wanted to say I have my virtual toast over here. I'll wait for when you all are ready. And congratulations, Chair Schmidt. I've been wanting to say Mr. Schmidt is right, and it often is the case, I think, in this case. So congratulations and thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Seeing no other public comment, I'll return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay,
Is it to me? Because he's not gonna let people talk.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh.
teasing.
I have to read what's written here. So why don't we open it for EQC discussion?
I was just jumping in because I didn't realize it's an actual formal
It's
agenda item.
agenda
I
item.
think it's
Awkward.
hilarious that we're walking through the agenda. Jeff, you gave me such a warm welcome when I joined. You helped with the onboarding so much. And I remember the first thing you said to me is that there's lots of cool things going on with resilience and adaptation. And yeah, it's just not that many people get as excited about us about resilience and adaptation. So that's pretty fun. And you just have an inspiring commitment to making Menlo Park environmentally optimal. Like there's a theory and that's a vision and that's what you're working toward. And it's also making it walkable and livable. Yeah, That's pretty cool. And yeah, dedication to the projects, but the people even more. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo the sentiments. Chair Schmidt, it's been great working with you. Just really appreciate all the work that you put in the Urban Canopy and engaging with students and your work with the school district. And your role as chair. I've enjoyed collaborating with you on the agenda setting. And I just really, I like the decision that you made to run for council and serve in that role. Like, I think a lot of people probably underestimate like the work that's involved in that, and you've taken that on. And I'm really excited, as we all are, to see the progress that can be made with you on council. And yeah, just really appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Just,
It
it's
has
free
been a
for all of
pleasure,
you.
working with you. I learned a lot, and I appreciate the way that you build coalitions and get everybody involved, and looking forward to what you're going to be doing at the council. I think that you are the right person for that and beyond, because that's part of the council. It's a tough job ahead, but I think that you can do it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really appreciated getting to learn from you and getting your mentorship these past 6 months on the EQC so far, and I wish you a lot of luck on the first city council. It's definitely a big feat and a big thing to take on, and I know you're gonna do well. Thanks. Good luck, and thank you for all you've done here.
I'm glad you're in the team too. It's great.
So good. Rachel or Liz, did you want to say anything? Not that you have to.
Well, we think about things extra carefully now as we communicate. We've been practicing this over the last few months. Because it's a different dynamic. So I'm really excited that we've had the chance to build the relationship off the dais. And there's so many things that Jeff has done behind the scenes that made applying for grants easier for us, that made working with the county easier for us, and has really built our capacity in a very meaningful way. I've even like taken some of his spreadsheets as templates, so it's from the tools he shares to the ideas. I'm thrilled that we get to work with you across all sorts of different topic areas now.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, echoing off of what Rachel said, I really appreciate you always recognizing how much we do as a team, a sustainability team, and not forgetting that. And you were really welcoming when I first started, because I was, one of the new kids, and I really appreciate that. So I know you're going to be great on council, and now we have someone on our side, which is awesome. So good luck.
Indeed. Okay, well, this agenda item requires some props. So now is time to, and please join us. Everyone needs to grab a glass. For some sparkling water and maybe a pomegranate juice or apple cider. What would you all like? Yeah, we have many glasses. You want cider? Okay.
Good.
We'll go cider. All right. All right. Jeff, what do you want?
No, I might do poker.
Anybody else want cider? Pomegranate. I'm kind of doing it. I'm gonna do a sparkle water with a pomegranate, right? Who else wants? Everyone, I think you should just pour whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Cider?
Thank
This is the cider.
Do you have
Say one.
tea? Okay, I'm gonna do a splash of this on top. All right. All right. Two. The beverage to Chair Schmidt, about to become a council member Schmidt.
Cheers.
You're here.
Cheers.
Yay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yay. I need to sing. Cheers, everybody online.
Thank you.
Yeah, yay. Okay, thank you for indulging the celebration part of me.
Apparently this item does not need a motion. Thank goodness. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm not going very far. We'll be doing a lot of great things. All right, why don't we move to item D3, if that makes sense? Get into the meat of it, because there's been a lot of hard work on this one. We're gonna discuss updates to the Heritage Tree Ordinance, administrative guidelines, and recommendations. And this presentation will be made by Ms.
And this will be a fairly brief presentation since we had an opportunity at our October meeting to give some more context and background on the Heritage Tree Ordinance. And this is finally the opportunity where we can deliver the draft admin guidelines and hear EQC's feedback and recommendation on the updated admin guidelines. And so as we reviewed last meeting, the administrative guidelines help city staff implement the Heritage Tree Ordinance. They are not policy, and so they can be updated by our Public Works Director, rather than, you know, an extensive process with city council and subcommittees there. And they provide definitions and supplemental procedures on how we can comply with the ordinance. And this all originated during the March 20th meeting when City Arborist Jillian Keller and her team, Natividad and Joanna, presented on tree activities across the city. And we identified some challenges for the city arborist when it comes to the Heritage Tree Ordinance and identifying some opportunities to allow her to better protect our canopy. So that was the genesis. We landed on this policy document as a place for maybe adding some more protections or some clearer guidelines to help staff and to help our residents understand how important heritage trees are in the city. So we did see this summary of what the updates to the admin guidelines were in our last meeting. They haven't changed since then, but I was able to publish with this item the PDF document of the admin guidelines. So we can take time to, you know, either go through these again, or we can kind of jump right into the discussion of some ideas. I know the Heritage Tree Ordinance Admin Guidelines Ad Hoc Subcommittee has done a lot of work as far as reviewing these guidelines ahead of this meeting. So I think we can have a more efficient conversation. And then as far as next steps, tonight is the night to share out all of those ideas, and I will be the steward of them and bring them to Jillian and Joanna and to our Public Works team. And they will finalize and publish the updated admin guidelines, incorporating ideas from the EQC this evening. And I think where a lot of the kind of consideration and where a lot of the time and labor is around figuring out if the ideas are in alignment with the Heritage Tree Ordinance. Like if there's something that conflicts with language in the Heritage Tree Ordinance or would trigger an update there, that's typically where they're drawing the line, what they include in the admin guidelines. Just a little background on that process. So I can pull up the admin guidelines if that's helpful. I can go back to the summary slide. Or we can have a discussion. And so I'll pause for clarifying questions before we go into public comment and then discussion. If that sounds all right.
Yeah, so we need clarifying questions from the EQC before we take.
I don't know if it's a clarifying question. If it isn't, we can table it for later, but can you just summarize how these changes effectively or potentially protect trees more or give them more value? It's hard to kind of see that from the summary of updates,
Yeah,
and the document itself is pretty detailed and technical, and I tried to read through it, but I was just like that overriding sort of like thought of how is this protecting trees more effectively?
yeah, so they did update to the 10th edition, which does have an increased value, but that is a national scale of valuing, so you probably weren't blown away by the numbers. It's still like, you know, 1,200 or something, depending on the size of the trunk. The other piece that I know was critical was defining better multi-stemmed trees. And so looking at like each of the stems rather than just the thickest part. So that I know was important to the team. There was also, processes added for, reviewing tree removal due to conflict with habitable structure. So the tree right next to the house and damaging the foundation, which we heard during that, heritage tree removal permit. And actually, sorry, that was the March item, not the arborist report. And then, sorry. And then there were some other kind of admin type of things that don't necessarily further protect, which is maybe what you were thinking about, like adding and removing tree species from the list, but improve biodiversity and native trees. And the inclusion of more trees is considered heritage trees. So that's a high level look.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Had a quick one as well. I just want to make sure I followed the thread. Did you say that it has been compared to the ordinance, or it's to be compared to the ordinance?
It has been compared to the ordinance. So all of these are vetted by city attorney as appropriate for the guidelines versus the ordinance.
Does that mean these are in effect now, or does it mean?
No, they won't be in effect until we get some EQC comment and then Public Works publishes them.
Okay, got it. Any other clarifying question? So why don't we just lead to public comment? Ms. Launder, do we have any public
Sorry,
comment? Oh, yeah, go
to
ahead.
clarify, so the part about the you mentioned about the appraisal value. Where is in all of these documents? You indicated that the appraisal value of the tree has been adjusted to national standards, is that what you said?
It's 13.24.020 at the top.
Yeah, and I can share that.
It refers to a particular book, I think way up. Yeah. Or down, like at the top of the doc.
If you go to the very end of the doc, you can see the values.
Well, there's two references, that's the value, and then like where it comes from is the. But maybe it's helpful to see. Okay, wait, can you stop there, Rachel? Just like a little bit above,
Oh, yeah,
there's the reference. That first reference.
as
is
consistent with the guide for plant appraisal interpretation.
So that's the first one, and then there's some numbers later on.
But these are national values? As opposed to specific to our.
Correct.
Well, the later in the doc is the specific to us. Is that right? Like the 130% of the,
That's from the. Sorry, I want to see what you're referring to before I speak on it. It's my understanding that those values come from the 10th edition, but I can clarify.
Yeah, I didn't read that as unique to us.
oh, okay.
I mean.
So this
but-
is just related to the tree replacement requirements, but the valuation comes from the guide.
Yes,
Okay, okay, and that's just the national standard.
yeah.
Okay, that might be an opportunity for us to look at.
Was this the book she used during the adjudicated case, the case that came before us? Do you remember? Or-
Yes, it
It was
was.
the same
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so these are national.
Yes.
And there is no way to factor in the extra cost of the area?
I think that's part of our discussion.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. Thank you.
Why don't we check if any other clarifying questions, just to be sure. So why don't we see if there's any public comment? Slaughter, do we call for public comment?
absolutely. If you're in the room and you'd like to make public comment, you can grab a public comment card on the ledge and hand it over to me. If you are calling in, you can press *9, and if you're on Zoom, you can hit the raise hand button and I can unmute you. We have one public comment card in the room, and we have one online, so we can start in the room. Let me just share our timer here. We have 3 minutes this evening, and we will start with Scott Marshall.
Yes, hello. It's great that there's some updating because of costs that change over time and maybe better analysis of how to determine if it's a heritage tree or not. But like I said at the meeting last month, one thing that I did not see in the additions here is something that can identify a heritage tree before a project is ever started. So that's just a reiteration of what I said before, but I think that would save a lot of problems with heritage tree removals and conflicts with construction or proposed construction. If there was some way that the city could indicate to new landowners that there are heritage trees on the property, that might be a good way to prevent conflicts from arising in the future. So I'm just reiterating what I said before. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, and then we have one online, and I'm just fixing the timer so it's less distracting. Okay, Meg, I'm gonna unmute you, and you're good to go.
Hi, my name is Megan O'Grady Green. Thank you so much. I look forward to reading this in detail. I want to second the comment that was just made about identifying heritage trees before a project begins. I think that's a really very worthy, valuable consideration. And just some other points that I may have mentioned before, just to keep them in the thinking and on the radar. Related actually to something that was just said, the costs, fees, penalties. I wondered if we could evaluate those based on micro neighborhoods, based on the real estate average costs in micro neighborhoods, because there is really abundant resource going into new builds. Also would love to see what we can learn from the impact on our urban forest, given the number of subterranean footprints and new residences that are taking place, where they're digging down the entire footprint of a residence, an entire basement, essentially, for the footprint of the house. How does that impact neighboring heritage trees? How does that impact our urban forest as a whole? How does that impact our water table? How does that impact new trees that get planted and their viability of a good root system if there are subterranean dwellings on all sides increasingly? Want to give a shout out to the amazing arborist department, but also, from my humble opinion, very understaffed. I have no idea how they do it, and it's amazing. And I just want to highlight the need for more support, particularly when it comes, again, in my relatively uninformed observations, when it comes to really carefully tracking our heritage trees being removed without permit. Are we able to track that carefully? And then when a heritage tree or tree is removed with permission, the really the accurate tracking of replacement, whether or not there's just the replacement piece seems like a weak link at times, and an opportunity there to challenge the national standards in terms of value of what someone pays. If they're not going to put in a replacement, to pay a couple $100 is really not that much when there's been an investment of, maybe 4 to 9 million for a build to begin with. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. And I don't see any additional hands raised online, so we can close public comment.
Fantastic. Why don't we open it for EQC discussion?
I have lots of very detailed comments, but I feel like we should start with the bigger picture, like how trees are being valued and.
Yeah. Overall, in the subcommittee examining this, our strong feeling is that the valuation of the trees isn't adequate to reflect their value in a number of ways. The number of years that the city has invested in keeping the canopy good and the size of a tree in the number of years it takes to get there, as well as the shade and beauty and the desirability of the city and air quality. There are many factors that we thought would contribute to a larger value beyond the guide. We see the guide as more of a starting point with many factors that are particular to the values of Menlo Park, contributing to a larger. And so, in fact, we even put some thought into considerations for how that tree valuation in regards to removal might be calculated. So, as I said, impacts on health, climate, environment, geography, aesthetics. And if you'd go to the next slide. So the idea is that apparently the idea is that I would write a really, really tiny type slide, but the idea is that we would expand the valuation and that it would be a flexible valuation. It would reflect if there's a removal, how much it reduces the urban canopy, how much it reduces the shared air quality, how much it impacts as we get more bald, the desirability of the city, and also the impacts in shade and beauty across the neighborhood beyond the initial. So the idea is that, you know, trees have a lot to do with property values and public health and climate change resilience. And most of all, the actions the city takes always takes into account the interests of all residents. And toward that end, we thought we might come up with an idea for maybe a multiplier formula. The idea is that there are different factors that apply to any given tree, and maybe if you have a starting formula, which is the one in the handbook that we discussed earlier, that might be a beginning, and that there might be more value to the tree that's multiplied on depending upon the situation of the tree. So, for instance, one of the multipliers might be due to air quality, and an example of how we might discuss that is written over there in the teeny tiny type around the data and the variable. The notion is the air quality for every census tract in the city is a known factor. If you cut them into deciles, then removing a tree from a very poor air quality area would have a much higher multiplier. That tree should be harder to remove. In a similar idea of making trees harder or less hard to remove, or to actually not necessarily harder to remove, but requiring more investment in a replacement if there's a removal. There's the impact on the canopy. This was something that Jeff described really well when he was talking about if a certain neighborhood has had a number of trees removed recently, or if there's a number all at once, that there might be a multiplier to raise the value of any given tree in that decision. Similarly, the impact on the canopy, similarly, the community input. And this was a bit of a wild card. We thought if there are a lot of people stepping up to comment about a particular permit, that perhaps that would also be a multiplier. And to take it out of the hands of the city arborist, perhaps it would be dropped into the hands of the EQC, for instance, that we would create a multiplier around how much impact a particular tree permit is having. This formula is directional. It gets very granular merely to demonstrate how it would work at the point of being done. But we have discussed it with Jillian and Rachel, who hosted a very useful subcommittee readout. And the arborist's office was pretty excited to have the ideas. I think they've got enough to do without having to think of brand new ideas. And so it seemed as though this might be a helpful direction. The idea is it's flexible. It escalates up depending on the situation of a particular tree, and it overall increases the value of the tree. My favorite one in here is how long it takes to replace the tree. That if you're replacing it with the same size tree, the multiplier is none. But if it's teeny tiny versus a 30-year tree, we need to respect the number of years the city has put into growing it. So little diversion there, but that's where we went with it.
Two small bits of context. I mean, part of the reason for that growth multiplier is you know, it's not necessarily captured in the handbook, but and it's hard to measure tree by tree, but you're taking away air quality and you're adding to the public health impact by getting rid of a major carbon capture or a major greenhouse gas capture. And you know, you're potentially impacting a generation. And then the second thing is, you know, the perfect example of context in the neighborhood is Bellhaven. You know, that is the neighborhood we do not want to really remove any more trees from, so I would assume like the multiplier should be higher. So it's just, there's concepts that Stan came up with and that underpin this that I think are important to take into consideration as we're trying to influence maybe beyond the handbook. Makes sense.
I appreciate all the work you've done in the formula. Yes,
We are a power subcommittee.
indeed. I have other comments, but I'm wondering if other folks from the room have any questions or comments about the valuation in particular, because that's a big piece.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on it. I'm gonna say it very directly, but I couldn't think of, I don't mean it in a bad way. So why didn't we go beyond the textbook or the handbook? I mean, why are we really stuck to that? Because the part of what influences that was literally what Suzanne just said, which was there's actually lots of multidimensional ways to think about this. And my impression going back to the handbook, and like I said, there's nothing behind that except just figuring out a very direct way to ask the question.
Yeah,
Is I felt like, but then we reverted back to something that still feels 2 generations earlier than maybe we want to go. If that makes sense.
yeah, I hear that. I'm not an arborist, but I do know that Julian leads with evidence-based research, and I think that's what the source of truth is for arborists. So I think this sort of stuff gets into kind of like the Menlo Park flavor of things where, you know, we would be verging from maybe what other jurisdictions or standards are. And I think would trigger an interesting study around some of those equity issues that we talked about, like if it's a homeowner in Bellhaven removing a tree and they're having to pay more, or, you know, do a larger exercise than someone in Sharon Heights or something, there becomes maybe a tension there. And so thinking about developers and new homes versus, you know, emergency situations and that sort of thing. And I think one of the places where this could land, and so I'm curious to get out of the EQC tonight, if this formula is interesting, is part of our urban forest management plan and kind of that study around how we can better protect our canopy. Because I see a need for kind of digging even, you know, further into this data around, you know, what is gonna be our data source for each of these, and what exactly is the multiplier, and that sort of thing. So I think there's still some steps to take with it that would need maybe some research or evaluation. And so I think when Jillian goes to kind of like what the research is, it's her 10th edition. But yeah, I think when we talked about it, there was a general interest, and the biggest concern was, does this concept conflict with the heritage tree ordinance? And so we're still kind of teasing that apart. But it'd be really helpful to hear broadly if the EQC thinks this formula is valuable, or if there are any concerns or additions or subtractions to it.
I mean, on my side, I like the concept in general. I mean, I couldn't find these slides on the attachment. Are they supposed to be?
No, it's just part of the discussion.
Oh. So I don't know what is the right formula. I guess my first thing would be to go and look whether anybody else in the country has done something like this and then do a bit of comparison. But I like the general concept.
Couldn't find anything elsewhere in the country, which is surprising.
Maybe innovative. A Susanna Hill original.
And there may be a way to phase it in too. I mean, if you
Right.
took the whole thing and you needed credible data sources and you needed everything you would to make the formula work. I think even adding two variables takes us further, you know, I don't know, the growth rate and the, I don't know, neighborhood context, I just made that up, right? But
Mhm.
that still, you know, teases us into stretching the muscles.
I agree with that. I like this approach, like, we need to make it harder or costlier to remove these trees, but maybe if we looked at it by adding less multipliers to start out with, and then like, what are the most important ones, do we think, and then maybe build on it as we understand what we're doing more. I like it.
It seems to me that the valuation figure may not. Is a bit separate from the cost that has to be carried by the person, the group doing the development, right? I mean, there is okay, this is the value of this tree. But maybe that value has to be done by the property owner that's buying into there, or maybe the city has to help some. So for things having to do with Bellhaven, where the value may still be very high, but maybe it doesn't have to be carried necessarily by property owner. I think that those two are somewhat separable. I mean, certainly a very wealthy neighborhood, they should be carrying the whole value. But in a neighborhood that is not as wealthy, maybe we can help the city, right? The value might still be very high.
Yeah, I love the concept. I think I just instinctually feel that the numbers, that the national numbers are too low and undervalue trees. And so I love the concept of creating more value. And I think this is a really unique way to think about it. And it might also be like an educational tool for folks that maybe don't understand some of the components, the tree. I mean, most people I would think love trees, but they may not think about it this way. And this may help them feel a little differently about the idea of removing it.
Yeah, and if we were prioritizing which factors, I would say that the air quality one would be really
Right.
important.
And
That
that
should be
one's-
on the list, because we know that data exists.
We know that data exists.
Yeah. And it's a huge concern for the folks in Bellhaven especially.
And it also would go to the other one that's the most subjective, which is the community input. I think, where there are a lot of people who are coming in and saying these trees are important, I think that might be one that, as difficult as it is, might be the most important to try to get in there.
And if it ties to their enforcement management plan, the impact on the canopy and the neighborhood. You know. I have not been privy to that, right, or for the reasons we talked about, but like we need to count the trees, right? That's understand what the coverage, right, the coverage. Canopy coverage is right now. That I believe is part of the exercise game plan, so that variable could be quite an easy one to just slide into the process, if there was willingness to do.
And I would imagine there would be a high overlap between the impact of, if it was a large impact on the canopy in the neighborhood, it would probably trigger a lot of people very concerned in the
Right.
community.
Should-
So maybe we can have just one or the other.
I mean, I'll go to the Bellhaven thing tomorrow night. and,
Yeah.
I mean, it comes up almost every time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't remember if it came up to me, you were at, but it comes up a lot.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we also can't depend upon people noticing and piping up. For the value of the tree to stand, and so, I think that the canopy is one that is very, appealing because. It can be measured in terms of maybe a census tract, for instance, and the removal of one tree when there are only 3 is huge, and the removal of one tree when there are 3,000. Not so much, and the value of the tree would change accordingly.
There's a couple things, I'm not sure if it's in here, so apologies if it is, but I believe, trees can reduce the urban heat island effect. And so I don't know if there's a way to somehow quantify that. And then also just the carbon sequestration potential of the tree, and how that's affected if the tree is removed. Just a couple of thoughts that I think are valuable to trees that maybe we could incorporate into that formula.
One other data point as well, and I know Nancy wants to get to some detailed comments. But it just reminded me, you know, as a subcommittee, as we were talking about this. It's hard to separate the influence that people have on you when they sit in a meeting. And so all I really need to say is a lot of those concepts up there that got translated into a very nice formula came from residents. The whole idea of and it's not like somebody had a Thomas Edison moment and it was a light bulb. And it was just that they were talking about it all the time. They were talking about, I'm older, I'm getting asthma, we're tearing out all these trees. It's gonna be 25 years before these new planted trees. So it's not really just us as a representing a theoretical exercise as, you know, people who care about this stuff. It's taking these community voices and translating them into input that I think is getting to you, which we hope gets to the study. So it just maybe file that in the back of your head as we're talking about this, because I know that's an important part of why we do stuff as a city, is because residents ask us to. So this wasn't just the EQC coming up with this. We were just being the channels for it in a way.
Yeah, I second everything you just said.
Yeah.
Deep concerns about asthma in elders, young ones, the air quality for everyone.
How long it takes to take a sapling and turn it into something, like all those.
It takes a long time to
All
make
those
an old
concepts
tree.
are just, those are voices from Bellhaven, frankly.
Indeed.
You know,
I have some other very specific comments. Can we go into the details? Okay. So and I have these all written down if you don't want to take detailed notes, Rachel, I can. Okay,
I can be listening. Thank you.
okay. All right, so in section 13.24.020, where it references the 10th edition of the plant appraisal, I recommend that we just say the most recent edition. So that we don't have to update this every time a new edition comes out. In the next section, .030, the third bullet says recommendations for tree removal and preservation. And I thought we should say recommendations for tree preservation, removal, and replacement. So reordering and adding replacement.
What line was that?
It's the third bullet in 13.24.030. So prior to demolition and construction work, we need to submit this information. And it's recommendations around tree removal and preservation, but I thought we should also put information about the replacement too.
And put the word preservation.
Yeah, and put
first.
preservation first.
Did you mention the 10th edition referencing the first page too? Needing to be updated?
I only know there was one place, and that's where I thought we should essentially delete the reference to the 10th edition and just say the most recent edition. Anywhere it's referenced. I think I only saw one. Are you ready for me to go on?
Please.
All right, 13.24.050. I feel so wonky. Okay, criterion 5 under development. Let's see. I thought we could, so in criterion 6, if you scroll down a little bit farther. Where is this? Related to utility interference. There's a paragraph here around around city notification. Let's see, where is that?
Yeah, it's,
For large development projects, but I thought we should apply to criterion number 5, development. So the so the goal, okay, so if you look at that second paragraph under criterion 6. Is that right?
Yeah.
The agency shall provide a tree replacement plan to the city.
No, I was thinking more the public comment. If
Yeah, the
the
notice
agency is,
requirements.
yes, the notice requirements, and then the independent public outreach, a public meeting or posting that explicitly outlines tree impacts and the replacement plan and an opportunity for public comment. I essentially think we should do that for criterion 5. Not all development projects, but say if more than 5 or 10 or 50 trees are gonna be removed, like whatever the number is, I think there should be an opportunity for public notice and public comment. I have other thoughts on the whole public notice thing, but I think especially for whenever there's a lot of tree removals, I think we could adopt that addition for the utility interference. And the language is already figured out, so I thought we could just easily like cut and paste. I think it should be if more than 5 heritage trees are impacted. That is my recommendation. Okay, as it relates to the same area, 13.24.050, the notice requirements. I would like to see us post all heritage tree removal permits online. And have that database be something that people can subscribe to, where they receive an automatic notification. You know, this tree is, you know, being considered for removal. But I think it would be important that it be automated, you know, and include all heritage tree removal requests.
And there was a little thing about them being able to click through to make a comment or something. Did I not say that?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And be able to submit comments. Yeah, right there. That would be awesome. Even better. But I just think, you know, if you happen, there's like this yellow sign, and if you happen to walk by that tree within the 15-day comment period, it's not sufficient, especially for a large development, where a lot of people are impacted.
And especially for a 50-year-old tree, it just deserves better.
Yeah. The last idea I had was on 13.24.090, heritage tree replacements. There was some language, I think, in the, I essentially pulled it from the request for the heritage tree removal permit, but essentially add tree replacements must be planted within 90 days of permit issuance. Because this is when people sign off on their request, that's what they're saying they're gonna do. So I think we should add it here. And photographs sent to Joanna. And then my other suggestion is an additional photograph will be required 1 year after planting to ensure the replacement tree is thriving. And at that point, the permit would be considered officially closed. I mostly lifted the language from the heritage tree removal. So hopefully that's already been approved.
And what happens if they don't do that?
Well, then presumably some fee schedule would kick in. I don't know what I don't know if that's listed in the Menlo Park fee schedule. Do you happen to know if someone doesn't replace the tree that they took out, that there's some?
It's my understanding that's $5,000, or that's what I've seen. And I thought that was a flat rate.
Okay.
But it may be varied.
Yeah.
Can failure to do something like that impact follow-up permits?
No. It's an admin citation, and our police department handles those. Separate from our building process.
But like at some point, maybe this fee kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't follow. So, but I know there've been a lot of public comments about the concern about people removing trees and never actually replacing them. And yeah, so those are my suggestions.
And small comment about the Heritage Tree Fund 13.24.070. Just to specify who's spending the fund, what it's spent on, is it the homeowner or the city? Wasn't entirely clear. Again, tiny tweak.
Yeah.
Just not, just puzzled. And then. Just to note with the assembled body that. When we're talking about the valuation of the tree and that whole thingamabob we talked about a second ago, it applies to the infeasible calculation, the feasible, infeasible calculation in criterion 5, as an example.
Mhm.
So that the removal of the tree would depend upon 140% of the value. And that's where the rubber hits the road.
Just wanted to amplify the public comments about identifying heritage trees before development starts. Is there a process that we can think about? Or
We have
you-
actually a suggestion in the next agenda
I
item.
saw that, that's for, which is great, but I'm just wondering, like, that only takes effect on a property transfer, so there's a lot of homes out there that an owner may say, I already own it, and I want to now redevelop it. So that knowledge of, from a disclosure wouldn't be there, so is there a gap to fill in there? Have you had any discussions with rest of city staff on the feasibility of sort of creating that database of heritage trees and informing the owners who possess them?
Yeah, I think that's helpful feedback to hear tonight, and I think. We have talked about it in terms of scoping the urban forest management plan and using that as an opportunity. To evaluate that data and collect that data. I'm thinking about. How that would fit in here in this process.
And it may
This-
not, I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up again.
Yeah,
But I want to second that. I had the same, I was gonna bring it up theoretically and know that it might not be part of this. Part of the holistic process, but I think as Scott said, it is part of. It's something we shouldn't let go, I think, wherever it sits, whatever. Cause it might not even sit with the EQC at the end of the day, it might sit with,
And
you know,
planning.
planning.
mhm. Yeah, I'm thinking, like the trigger point for getting that data, and one of the trigger points I was thinking was the development of the urban forest management plan. Because we'll have access to drones and scientists and hopefully some resources there. And I'm just thinking if you have any other trigger point ideas. For how we would get that data from homeowners or property owners.
Surveys.
I mean, not to get us off track, and you can take this offline, it might be worth a conversation with JP, because they had proposed at one point to the city, community-based inventory where students and volunteers and other folks would help with the private tree inventory, which is the challenge. The public tree inventory, Julian's been keeping that for many years, but it's the private trees that kill us, right? So JP's got a model where, you know, they do block walks and they categorize, and anyway, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but it's worth a conversation to see if that could be an approach to get some of that data, and then they capture it in, gosh, what is it, the Arbor, the application that they have to capture it, the inventory, I can't remember what it's called now, Arbor Care or something, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's ways to get that data both manually and through drones and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I had two other things I just want to make sure. I wanted to echo what Vice Chair McKinnon said, because I had four things, but those were two of them, the information and the process. To share that. The other, I was thinking about this idea of micro neighborhoods. The challenge that I'm learning, having walked many of the neighborhoods over the last 6 months, is it's tough to tell, like, what is the neighborhood, what are the boundaries? I know, I mean, we do some of that technically, but we could, instead of thinking of micro neighborhoods and the valuation based on that, we could at least start with districts, because districts are clearly bounded and defined, and the nice thing is they're attached to city council people who have a vested interest in making sure that their districts are protected and represented. So this idea of micro neighborhoods, I think, is really interesting, but there could be a challenge with definition.
There's a census tract, which is beautiful.
yes.
I think one of those two would be good.
But a simpler way to, I guess all I'm saying is a simpler way to get moving quicker is just by district. So that's one thought to consider.
As far as, counting and sharing heritage trees, or is
The concept that the speaker brought up about the valuation
that?
based on micro neighborhoods, and one micro neighborhood's gonna be very well off and maybe could afford one. You know, you could, it gets more and more custom, which is also kind of tricky. But, yeah, so it's just, the further we get toward custom, I think the boundaries need to be a little simpler. And then the second thing. Apologies, I can't remember where it came up, whether it was in the comments from the group or whatever. I actually love this concept of number of years of care. You know, I mean, if I'm looking at, okay, I hate to sound so black and white, but if we invested 25 years of maintenance in the tree, that's a real cost to the city. Now, I know we don't have to tree by tree, but if we think about that, and then we turn around and we let developers just plow through them, that doesn't take into account the 25 years of investment we've made to both plant and grow and maintain that tree. So it's just something to think about as we're talking about concepts of valuation is, you know, what does that cost the city to maintain a tree for 100 trees? I guarantee you, even factoring that in, you know, we're really undervaluing trees when we let developers plow through them.
They're not seen as having the same value as man-made infrastructure. They're weeds. Can't come out.
But that's not, I
But
mean,
there's a tremendous, if you're looking at it from the perspective of man-made infrastructure, there's been an investment, there's been a continued investment, there's been maintenance, there's been. And
there's staff hours. I mean, it's
staff hours.
part of the reason this came up, and it triggered me, but I think you guys know, like, my brain sort of connects dots, you know, and we were sitting at Stanford in an all-day meeting, and it was a meeting where we didn't feel like there was a lot of value in what they were presenting. And it was all day, it was 6 hours, and there were some senior level folks in there, and we were kind of calculating the salary hours, the real cost to deliver that training to Stanford. And it could have easily been $500,000. So, because you're talking staff time, you're talking, you know, it wasn't the food that they put out, it was, you know, it was really truly calculable cost. So anyway, it's just, I'm not trying to create slippery slopes, but I think we're undervaluing the money that we invested to make these weeds grow. To Susanna's point, you know, we need to kind of get people on it. Sorry, I will get off my soapbox.
No, I think
but-
that's the main thing though, is like, how are we valuing the trees? And clearly it's not enough
Right.
because people are not taking steps to design, to incorporate the trees in their design.
Right.
And we want to do everything we can with this upgrade to
Mhm.
encourage people to keep the trees in place and design around them.
It comes down to fundamental, it's a socialist principle, right? There's a tree and it isn't just the private property of the person. There are physically shared benefits
Yeah.
from the air to the ground, to the shade, to the property values of the surrounding people that mean that the neighbors have an interest in this tree beyond just the improvement of the one lot. And it's tricky because property values, property ownership rights, these are tricky things.
Can I just ask to your comments, the investment the city's made in maintaining and growing the tree, et cetera, planting it, that would just be for city-owned trees,
Just
not trees on private property.
Yeah, I mean, the private property is possible to calculate, but I guess the more I look into the city budget and, you know, the challenges of trying to keep that balance and trying to keep in the black. There's a real cost, you know, and so I was just making a more general point, but private trees are harder, but I still think if you factored in the real cost of 25 years of tree care, it's not even on the radar.
And we know that cost because when we do the street trees, we charge the homeowners the fee
Oh.
for maintenance.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a subsidized number, but they have a number for how much. I think it's like $70 or something a year to be able to host a street tree. Yeah. Okay, that's great.
I just want to make sure, I think that the tree folks in the room could keep this going on.
And we have another tree presentation as well for
Yeah.
things that diverge from here, because what I'm hearing is things we can do to make sure people even know they have a heritage tree before they begin work. And appreciate heritage trees and everything, and then what we can do with our guidelines when they know they're gonna remove it and they're ready to remove it. How do we value it properly so they're, either planting substantially more trees in replacement or older, more mature trees, or are paying more to the city into a fund for the city to do that. Yeah, so we can talk more about the first piece too in the second presentation.
Yeah, that sounds good. Should we, so it says something about a motion. Do we need to make a motion to adopt and put it forward, or what kind of motion?
So we don't have to make a formal motion, but we can, as far as, incorporating all of the comments that I captured on this document. As kind of a official EQC recommendations that I share with the tree team. So that could be an appropriate motion, or in good faith, I'll just do that, whatever is,
Well, let's back you up with a motion. What the heck?
yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, a motion doesn't hurt.
The only request I would add to that is to carry forward this last part of the conversation around investigating processes outside of the EQC with the planning department around. And let's keep it soft, so it's not holding you accountable for something you don't have a lot of control over, which is, just, investigating what it would take with other departments. For the process outside the admin guidelines of forming landowners, that part of the discussion.
Okay, I'll add that.
So a core part of that is tracking the database of heritage trees and making that visible to
Property owners or income.
future property owners and neighbors and the comment about being able to register and seeing changes, all of that creates a lot of social dynamics that encourages the whole community to be aware of what's going on and then provide the different levels of pressure on and feedback to maintain the trees.
And also I'm proposing is we don't put the burden on Rachel to do that work. We formalize the request to investigate what
Right.
that might look like. And then, she could come back and go, oh,
Yeah, I agree.
this is the worst idea ever because of all these so I'm hoping to formalize a request, because that could eventually get back to city council and say, hey, we made these requests and there were roadblocks, and I could see this being something that we might need to unknock at some point at the city council level. So making a formal request to start the investigation, for lack of a better word, on what that would take, I think.
Maybe, push forward on that after the next item, because there are a lot more ideas in the air.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
We can have a motion for the next item too, for
Yeah.
additional recommendations.
That we could do. Okay.
So this was maybe for the second
Yeah,
item.
yeah.
And we can amend this, I just figured I'd type something out. Oops, sorry. Is that readable?
On the formula concept that we all seem to be supportive of, how do we incorporate that into a motion and
Oh, let's add it.
what are we asking? Are we asking that we find out if that sort of jives with the heritage tree ordinance and if so, requires further thought on the multipliers or?
As it at first glance appeared that because they talk about a calculation in here, that it does seem like it could be,
Yeah, just layered on top of that appraisal guide.
yeah, in whichever way Jillian would want to drive it.
Uh, Tree value. Is that what you mean?
And stop at guidelines.
Perfect.
Yeah, all of the comments we made, including
Yeah.
that one, yeah.
Maybe second part of that is you were saying, Rachel, is like, and approve changes to the guidelines as. You were typing suggestions in there.
Is this inclusive of all the comments that
Yeah.
Nancy's comments and everything?
Yeah.
I emailed you too the details just in case you didn't.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, how to word that exactly.
Well, we might back it up and just say, pass along all comments from EQC to,
Okay. Yeah.
and that into the formula. And everything.
Staff to. Want staff to pass along all comments from the EQC inclusive of the tree valuation formula and
Pass along to
the tree team.
arborist office.
Before you type that in though, would you? Sorry, I want to be.
No problem.
Would you mind the part that you deleted at the end, I don't know. I want to be careful that we don't make it so general that we lose that specificity. Could you just like undo 2 times? Undo, yeah, I just wanted to see what the,
Oh, sorry.
if you just hit it a couple times, it'll show us what the previous language was, but then you can kind of redo it. Maybe it's a forward button.
I think I can even go. Well, I'll just keep. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'd recommend we include the comments and the formula. I mean, I don't want certain comments to get in the formula gets overlooked, because I feel like that's a really.
Yeah.
important.
I feel like the formula is really like the most important thing here.
Okay.
And
I'm okay having comments in there though, to, you know, like, they should pass on the comments, they should look at the comments. But they should really look at the formula.
Okay. Cause,
And those are all good people. Maybe just say. Oh, does it all have to be one sentence?
No.
Cause I feel like the sentence you have there is good, and then you can start the second sentence with. Evaluate the tree valuation formula, so get rid of first, second to recommend staff to evaluate. So just delete like the first 5 words there and start with evaluate, yeah, and then.
pass along all comments to tree team from the EQC. I don't think we need this. Tree team. Inclusive of the tree valuation formula and inline edits, and evaluate the tree valuation formula inclusive of multipliers as part of the heritage tree ordinance admin guidelines update.
So let's make sure they look at both their comments and.
great.
And should those all comments be qualified for something? I mean, these are the comments for something for the ordinance.
Yeah, comments for the heritage tree ordinance
Yeah.
administrative
I have to say
guidelines, but
something there, right? It's not all comments. In abstract, of
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole meeting.
pass along.
That makes sense?
Do you want to be here, Rachel, to see if we've got it?
Yeah, absolutely. First and second, to recommend staff to pass along all comments related to the heritage tree ordinance to the tree team, inclusive of the tree valuation formula and inline edits, and evaluate the tree valuation formula, inclusive of multipliers as part of the heritage tree ordinance admin guideline update.
Great. I'll make that motion.
Right, I can second.
Okay, so it sounds like, so do we have a motion?
Yeah, let me read the motion and then we can vote. So we have a motion from Commissioner Headley and a second from Commissioner Paligui-Apart to recommend staff to pass along all of their comments related to the heritage tree ordinance, to the tree team, inclusive of the tree valuation formula and inline edits, and evaluate the tree valuation formula inclusive of multipliers as part of the heritage tree ordinance admin guideline. All in favor? Great, we have 6 in favor and 1 absent, so moved. Thank you.
Fantastic. So with that, I think we can just let the conversation flow into item D4, where we review.
Sorry,
Oh, yes.
and the thing that you didn't include there, like, you're coming from the public, from Scott. That is included in the commons. I mean, we don't have to.
I think that'll be covered in the next item
okay.
and we can just make sure we don't forget it.
Okay,
I left the text in the document so we can use that as part of our next motion.
okay, thank you.
So item D4 is to review additional urban forest recommendations from the Heritage Tree Ordinance Administrative Guidelines Ad Hoc Subcommittee. Mouthful. The Heritage Tree Ordinance Administrative Guidelines Ad Hoc Subcommittee will make this presentation.
Okay. Thank you for pulling that up, Rachel.
That is the worst name ever now that I'm reading it out loud.
It's a mouthful for sure. All right, next slide, please. All right, we've already been speaking to the importance of the urban forest. But for anyone who's listening and wants to know more, there's some great links there that we encourage you to click through and learn more about all of the benefits to public health, to the environment, et cetera. And this was our observation of some of the challenges that we see, and we've talked about them already tonight, but the first one being that trees are not currently valued for their full benefits to the community. And that the current standards for tree removal and replacement during development, especially like large scale projects and public works, aren't quite sufficient. So we have some suggestions there to consider. We also have lack of data on the total canopy, which we'll be addressing in our recommendations. And there are really big inequities across the city. Bellahaven having a 12% coverage and Menlo Park overall at 28%, but you can see there's one census tract there that has even 42%. So it's quite, it just feels very different as you drive in different parts of the city, and we want to rectify that. Thank you. Okay, so these are the specific recommendations that we would like to see the city take, and some of them I think will go to city council and others are more general feedback. And we actually had the opportunity to share this with Rachel and with Jillian and Joanne. Was Joanne there? Or was it Liz?
She was out.
But Jillian, it was really good news because a lot of the ideas that we had and that we've been talking about, frankly, for at least a couple of years, Jillian's on it. So I'll try to share some of those things as we go through. And if I miss anything, please jump in. Okay, so we have a slide for each of these. So why don't we continue on? Okay, so the first thing here is to create a new project plan, especially given that Chair Schmidt has been, I feel like has been project managing the urban forest management plan thing in many ways. So let us restart that and make sure that we have a clear team lead, which I think we do in Mitchell. But make sure we have that plan, the team, and then communicate regular updates to all of us who care so deeply about that. So
And a clear community lead.
yes, and maybe a few community leads between the different nonprofit organizations that care deeply and Yeah, that would be wonderful. There's a lot of people who care about trees. Okay, our second recommendation is to get that inventory, the baseline inventory done. And the good news here is that Jillian already had proposals from these drone-based canopy assessment organizations that I think would be like a very fast and probably not terribly expensive way to get a baseline of what's going on across our city. So let us do that, and then we can analyze the results to figure out what we do next, which is in the third recommendation, which is really getting clear on the metrics and the targets. Yeah, so to Jeff's point about counting, we want to be able to count, and then we want to be able to know how we want to move the needle. So let us figure that out and make sure that we're tracking progress and doing more with community dashboards. There's some dashboards that the arborist team shares, including the heritage tree removals and, you know, sharing about mayor tree plantings and Arbor Day tree plantings, but there's a lot more data I think that we're all interested in terms of like canopy coverage and yeah, trees planted and the overall impact, especially over time.
And the metrics also being thought about in terms of also the formula and the metrics that we might leverage there.
So that will be a pretty large undertaking, which will hopefully though be part of this new urban forest management plan. So we want to make sure we have the plan in place, but also actually get it done. Because I know, you know, hearing from Scott Marshall that this has been for many, many years trying to get this moving forward. So we wanted to put a slide in like, let's actually get this done and you know, there's the funding, the grants, leveraging our partners, getting the community involved and really excited about this and ultimately having this document that will guide the city's investment in the urban forest over the long term, like much beyond our time on the EQC and maybe even our lifespan, you know?
And one thought, just to clarify, is people forget, like, it's an actual document. It
Yeah.
is a 40, 50-page document, so getting just that physical document done costs money, so. I think as we were discussing it, it was like, but what is this? And this is the process, and the trees and the counting, and it's like, but don't forget, like, we gotta get a document done, so.
And hopefully a lot of these things will fall in, but there are things we can do before the document. So that's what we wanted to try to highlight here. Okay, so the next piece has to do with building community commitment. So there's a lot of things that the city has been doing, and we're just so grateful for the commitment to trees all over. So there's a lot of, we want to continue doing things like the community education initiatives. And specifically, so Jillian, I think at the last EQC meeting was doing a tree class, so I couldn't attend. But my curiosity was, are we recording that? Can we have an online library so people can go back and find it over time? It seems like it could be an easy way to capture the wisdom and more readily make it available to folks who are not available at that time. We've been involving the community in tree planting, so let's keep doing that. I would love to see when we plant trees that there's some signage celebrating the tree, whether it's, you know, canopy from the canopy organization or from the city. Either way, there's a couple of examples there from Eugene, Oregon and San Francisco. And then there's this idea of like, let's create some signage, like, and kind of make our city like an arboretum. So especially with the city, the heritage trees on city property, we could start there and identify those trees, make a nice little plaque, get the QR code, people can learn more about the tree, and just a way for people to understand the value of trees and celebrate them.
And the specific little line in there that says the city protects its trees
Yes,
on
yes,
public and private land.
And private land, yes.
Well, you know, sorry, and I know this wasn't meant to be iterative, but like, imagine kids going on a tour, like, if we did that the right way, like a teacher, taking kids on a tree tour.
Jillian was into that idea.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
little tours of the various trees, she was into it. She said she'd done it a bunch of times. She's
Yeah,
really into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like just more of all of this to get the community really celebrating our trees. And then over time, if we had like a template for these tree plaques, we could invite community members, if they had a heritage tree, especially one that was out in the public, they could order their own plaque and add it, you know, just make it available. But on the second one is some more specific things that we would like to actually bring to maybe. Okay, so we thought this, considering a municipal ordinance to implement a real estate disclosure. So from the property seller to the buyer, You know, when you buy your house, you have to sign like all those documents. So something that's clear and easy to read, not like 10-point font about Menlo Park's heritage tree ordinance. And in the urban forest and how important it is. And maybe having a disclosure from the property owner saying like, the number of heritage trees on this land is whatever, 5, 10, 2, whatever. Maybe we also ask about all the trees on the land, but if it's heritage trees we're mostly concerned about, I think at a minimum we do that. And that's one thing that the seller tells the buyer and the buyer has to sign. And it's just raising awareness. And Jillian thought this was a great idea because she gets a lot of comments from new property owners thinking they can do whatever they want. And then, so she's thinking this would really save her a lot of time. Maybe.
I have an idea.
Great.
I don't know if it's right. I'm curious, I remember the Heritage Tree Ordinance appeal that we heard in March. The tree wasn't heritage tree size when they started the project.
Right, it was 9.5 inches.
Yeah,
And then it grew to 10.
so it might be interesting from that perspective to just disclose all trees versus. I don't,
I'm a fan of more disclosure. What were you gonna say?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yes,
I know.
yes,
Yes.
nothing.
And as an example, San Jose requires, that's the copy of their street tree disclosure form. And all of the real estate agents who do work in San Jose know that they have to have this disclosure as part of their thing. So we could, you know, take that and modify it for our purposes. All right, the other thing we thought would be really helpful is, I feel like Susanna, you should speak to this one. Oh,
So-
actually, can you go back one?
The notion is that there are real estate agents who like to specialize and become experts and known as experts in Menlo Park and the community, and that we could add a little feather to their cap, which would be a tree specialist certification. It would be very lightweight, voluntary, 30-minute little training, maybe even it's just a video, but the notion is that if you get a little badge issued by the city, that is not binding to anybody, but just decoration that you are a city tree specialist. It might engender more discussion about trees.
And would educate the real estate agents who are educating property purchasers, because that's also, you know, I think Jillian liked these ideas because it would help get ahead of the ball, so she's not having to deal with all these things on the back end. So the more we can do to educate the community and educate the people who are educating the community, it'll make a difference.
And we were mentioning about how this represents a cost saving for the city and the city arborist department, because the less that there's a back and a forth, or heaven forbid, an appeal, the more money that gets devoted to, you know, staying efficient and working on arborism.
Arborism. Okay, do you want to go back to okay, so there's two, in summary, these are the 5 things that we recommend, and on the next slide is the specific stuff we actually think would want to go to city council, which is 2 pieces that we would, I would love to have the EQC vote to say, let us continue to support and fund the urban canopy. And we have some suggested language there, and then to enact this disclosure ordinance. Because I think that would really move the ball forward, and I think we require a city council to make that happen.
So why don't we start with any clarifying questions for the EQC? And I'm gonna take a last meeting privilege as chair and say, I'd like to offer a clarifying statement too. Saying thanks to Suzanne and Nancy because they put a lot of work into this. I chipped in from the edges, but a lot of this creativity and just amazing ideas in here. They really spent a lot of time thinking through it, and I think it's very exciting. You know, it's if we take another swing at the, you know, getting money for this, incorporating a lot of these ideas, I think puts us in a really good position to stand out from the crowd. So my clarifying statement is thanks to both of you for that.
And I would clarify even further to say that Nancy really project managed this particular.
And I would clarify further to say thank you to all the community members who've been sharing their great ideas over the years, including Scott and Forrest and Megan and. Yeah,
That was the clarifying statements section. Are there any clarifying questions from the EQC?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for a great presentation, for identifying all the challenges and offering solutions. Two clarifying questions. There was a statistic about the canopy coverage. And there was also a suggestion that we do an inventory. So I was curious, like, what's the difference between the data we have now and the data we would gather? And then the other question was, the disclosure, I think it's a great idea. I was just curious if there was any thought about like who's responsible for determining what trees are heritage and what tools do we offer them to make that determination?
Yeah, I can answer the first question and
I'll take a shot at this.
okay, great. So with the first one, that image comes from Sustainable San Mateo County. And it was actually given to them by the US Forest Service 2018. So it's data that's relatively old at this point, but that's the only data that's currently publicly available. So we screenshotted that, but we want something that's more specific to Menlo Park and more easily like updatable.
Okay.
State of California is actually updating this though, and it's just not ready yet. I forget the university down Southern California that's doing it. Might be, not complete, it might be,
And who knows, maybe it will be easier with drone technology for the whole state to do it more regularly. And if so, maybe we don't have to do it ourselves, but we don't.
well, I think it's a multi-year project. I think they've been working on, I don't think it's close enough for the timelines we're talking about as well. So there's more current data coming, but yeah, this is in these circles, that's always a squidgy thing of like, what's the real number? And people pound the table and it actually doesn't matter that much. You know, that we're, as long as we're close.
Yeah, but it's helpful to have the information,
Totally.
especially over time.
Well, particularly with a disparity like that,
Yeah.
whether that's 12 or 13, doesn't really matter. The fact is one's 42 and one is 12.
Okay, and the second question is,
So the second question, the directional notion that we had was that there would be blanks on it to say how many trees or how many heritage trees, we were fuzzy on that, but that it would be that the property owner, as with all disclosures, would capture the information and there wouldn't be like a very strict or deep sort of punishment for getting it wrong. I mean, it was merely the awareness, like that they're asked to go around and tape measure something and do their best.
Okay.
And that was sufficient for the intention.
so hopefully they can find a tape measure and maybe we provide the guidance of what is a heritage tree in the ordinance so that they can go
What's
out
in,
and do a measurement.
There's different definitions for different species, right? So that too.
what we didn't
Which
want
we
to
can
do,
just lift from the,
we didn't want to require the arborist to go out and certify it, or
Yeah.
anything. That was
Right.
what.
yeah, or the, yeah. We didn't want it to be a cost, so it wouldn't be either city staff or an extra outside arborist, it would just be the landowner.
So I don't know where my follow-up on this is a clarifying question or a comment on what's the experience? It looked from the slide that the San Jose is from 2017. The San Jose disclosure.
Mhm.
So there have been multiple years of experience with this, and I wonder whether how is it working in San Jose?
That's a good question, I don't know, it's quite a bit different because it's only about street trees.
Oh, it is on the street.
Yeah. So it's just an example of a way we could do a
Okay,
disclosure,
okay.
but we have, I think, different purposes.
We could go into public comment if there's no more clarifying questions.
So, just wonder why don't we see if there's anything.
If you're in the room and you want to make public comment, I have a public comment card for you. So
Yes.
just write ×2 on there. And then if you're online, you can hit the raise hand button and I can unmute you. And I don't think we have anyone calling it. So. I don't see any hands raised online. So we'll start in the room. And let me just get our timer going here. Okay, so we can start with you, Mr. Marshall, and Libby.
Yes, hello, Scott Marshall again. Most of what I have to say is just my observation that what I've heard with the idea of having, and going back a little ways, going back to the how to evaluate trees and using different matrices, like the age of the tree, things like that. That is something that has been missing for many years, where it's just a tree that is in the ground and it's the diameter of the trunk is measured and its value is this much. All those other factors that were brought up tonight are real, intangible. Well, they're intangible in that you don't see them, but they do contribute to the value of the tree, and I think it's very important. Then moving on to what we've just reviewed over about the changes here. Oh my gosh, gotta think about what was up there.
I can share.
It seems like your ideas are a step in the right direction, a great step in the right direction. Just becoming more aware of everything that's going on in the canopy inventory, having an urban forest master plan. I mean, if these things can be done, then I think the city will actually start growing the canopy and people will become more aware. I mean, I'm just reiterating that what I've heard tonight is just really good stuff. Let's hope that it moves forward and that it's adopted at some point a while down the road. But it sounds great.
We have a minute left. You good?
I'm done.
Thank you for your comment. There's no more public comments, so we'll close public comment and return the meeting to you, Chair.
Fantastic. So why don't we open this item for EQC?
I think that the presentation is great and the recommendations are one in that the disclosure ordinance, if we make that to happen and then make that information available to the public and to the neighbors, is going to have a cascading, a positive effect. Because the seller will try to do the right thing because they want to sell. Right, and then if it's visible, the neighbors will keep an eye on that thing, right? And they'll say, oh, did you, whatever, right? And then the new person coming in will have that dynamic. So I think that this is a great idea. It's also somewhat similar to some of the disclosures that was just approved in the legislature for electrical compliance. I need to look at that, but there is a lot that just got approved.
At the state
Really,
level.
at the state level, and it's somewhat related to, I mean, they had a bit of the same flavor. You have to tell what are the encumbrances on electrical changes further down the line, right? But it's kind of, you have to say, and then it's visible, so I really like it.
One thing, I want to add to the discussion, and it's going to sound a little odd, but it's just how I tend to think about things. I'm deeply appreciative of the relentless pursuit of a set of ideas. So I'll look at Scott and say, this idea of altering processes outside our scope and making sure we're doing the right thing when it comes to protecting trees and just sticking with that idea until we either get it implemented or figure it out. Of this group, I'm really incredibly appreciative. I would make a request as I sort of vacate the chair that we please stay with it, because I mean, I'm a member of the board at Canopy. Scott's involved with Canopy. We're working with the county, you know, Josh Becker will be interested in this. The bigger picture vision for this is if we get half of this and what we're doing as a city, I can see this transforming the entire region the more we share it. So I would just ask everybody to kind of keep their eyes on the prize, which is we're going to have great effect in Menlo Park, but that knock-on effect for the region could be immensely powerful. And I think there are people who are sitting in this room who would gladly take that forward to a lot of other folks. So yeah, it's more a comment as we're doing the sloggy hard work of kind of making it move forward, that there's a bigger vision. If I had remained in this room, I would continually kind of remind us, you know, we're shooting for something much bigger than Menlo Park. But Menlo Park will be the call it, we're the
The vein.
example, well, we had some term we were abandoning about, we're the example city or whatever it was. Remember we were talking with the,
I don't,
whatever, we're the, there was some phrase, I can't remember now, but like, we're meant to be like the example city. And not in an egotistical way, but in a, like, hey, we've got a great city team, we've got a supportive city council.
Really,
Yeah, so.
it's about leadership and showing that it's possible.
Yeah, and so I know it's not really a discussion point, and I don't mean to be pontificating, but I guess I would just say, when it gets hard, please keep your eyes on that, because I can see parts of this getting hard, and I can see the members of council, being a little resistant, but there's a worthy price to be had.
Parting thoughts from.
So we got feeling quite philosophical, but need to be there.
So I guess I have a question about with the essentially the recommendations I have for the EQC and the city council that we have. Do we want to maybe modify that based on that the phrase that didn't get included in the last motion?
I'm just thinking about that too, is that's kind of inclusive in the deck, right? So. I don't
Kind
know.
of, I just don't want to make sure it feels sufficient for everyone that we've captured the essence, like maybe. Yeah,
so this was our number one motion for trees. And then this was a thought for number two.
But I think that's what I'm saying, is that's kind of folded into the council.
Yeah.
The question I had to sort of related to that is how does the PowerPoint move forward? Like, where does that go?
Yeah, I was, that's where my brain was going, and I was hesitant, or not hesitant, I was interested in sharing some thinking around that. I want to go back to Jillian and see if she does like an annual report to city council. Because that's a natural point to kind of bring some of these recommendations and get their direction. If not, another point could be when we're, bringing the urban forest management plan RFP to council. To work with consultants and community-based organizations. Another point for bringing it to council could also be with our, CAP annual update. And so the timing on all those vary.
isn't there also an opportunity for the chair update to city council?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that is.
For a while, it was like every 6 months, but I think we've kind of been doing it annually.
It's annual.
I did one, you did one.
That was July, I remember, right?
And I'm talking to Justin tomorrow, and I've heard a rumor that the city council can request things to be on the agenda, so
There is a form for that.
planting a seed there.
Oh.
Anything, just plant a seed.
So that's another pathway, but yeah, typically I don't have, like always a clear pathway for bringing, like I can't just say, I have a great idea, or the EQC has a great idea, can we agendize it? That's not quite how agenda management works. So I'm thinking about those, that Jillian makes a report, the CAP report, or bringing the urban forest management plan, RFP, or other channels.
One recommendation, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when we proposed to city council to update the remit of the EQC, it was the chair brought it forward and made the recommendation. It was part of the chair report. And we asked them to give staff direction to update essentially the job description of the EQC.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So that's how it worked. And I think the same thing with the leaf blowers. I think that's how it went as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, so maybe that's when it
But I
is.
think, two things to kind of twist that, backwards is, I think a member of city council could theoretically ask for an update on the urban forest management
Sooner rather than later.
whenever that's
Okay.
agreed, just like we
Yeah, yeah.
agree, and we've agreed our calendar, I believe, I'm gonna check with Justin, but I believe
Okay, that
You know,
seems like a good
it'll need to
strategy.
be Cecilia and Drew for now, but in the future might not need to be. One thing I would recommend is, I think we create a very purposeful flow in here to show the team the full structural stuff that needs to get done. So I'm thinking of like updating the project plan or creating a new project plan. That's a mechanical thing. We just wanted to recognize, hey, we had a way of doing that before that we need to reset. So I would say there, I wouldn't necessarily present all this to city council. I would
Yeah.
actually just do some of this work that's logical to do, like the inventory, because we have money for it, and carry forward the nuggets that the city council would then need to understand
Yeah.
they're approving a step in a journey that's already underway, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's something to respond to, yeah. right.
Yeah, cause you could say, hey, we've updated the we didn't get the California money, we've updated the new project plan. We started the street tree inventory, or the private tree inventory. You could position this as, we are well underway, and by the way, we need your center approval or ideas to do steps 3 and 4, for example.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Approach friendly members of council. Yeah.
That does make sense to me. Thank you for thinking through that.
Am I allowed to ask about funding?
Sure.
Just like, I know CAL FIRE was what it was. Is there discussions to go for another round, aside from the city capital improvement, the city budget process? Which I think is great, and we should definitely tee that up, but then the second question is more of. I saw preliminary budget for the state and it's gonna remain flat, but there's still money there. And I would assume they're gonna carry forward the program, so is their appetite to take another swing?
Definitely. And if anyone sees of any grant opportunities, please send them our way. CAL FIRE ones we definitely see, but if there's others.
Is it possible to put in a chit to the FAC's grant writing consultants to take the scan?
Yeah, I can ask.
Cause
We have them working on an EV charging grant right now. So I can just ask during one of our meetings. Okay, it looks like we might have cut out for attendees, or maybe it's just Liz. Looks like the other ones are online, but I just want to pause for a second to make sure we can get Liz back in. If you're attending remotely, if you could raise your hand if you can hear us. Perfect. We have a hand. Thank you for the tech check. Continue.
Or other points of discussion? Or motion?
We make a motion that we, I guess, approve the subcommittee's recommendations and request council to support the urban forest master plan or management plan and to. So would the staff be looking at the drafting an ordinance first and then presenting it to council or for the disclosure?
I think that's where we would want to get council direction before we started drafting the ordinance, but we would
Yeah,
want to go to them
okay.
with a couple other updates or some groundwork done. But not to say there wouldn't be maybe an opportunity to do like a survey or something before going to council or something. Some level of outreach, but maybe not as extensive as far as like putting together the actual ordinance.
Survey to residents? Just
Yeah, not like an extensive, like everyone gets a postcard, but like we put a link in the digest or on social media, like
We're thinking about this.
yeah.
So, and the goal would be to gauge the reaction to having this type of ordinance.
But it wouldn't necessarily be to do. It was just like we could do some sort of groundwork to putting together the ordinance and just gauging general interest and ideas from the community. But we wouldn't wanna like fully package it up and bring it to city council without getting the direction.
I'm wondering if there's a message that needs to go out to the community anyway regarding the admin guideline update. And like, hey, in case you have comments about this, here's this thing. We're also thinking about requiring a real estate disclosure. If you have any comments on any of these things, share it here. And by the way, the urban forest is really important, and use it as an opportunity to, talk up the trees and what we're doing to honor and protect them.
By way of a motion, what if we, I think to the point about diving in, because by diving into the ordinance part, we're leaving out other key parts. And so I'm just trying to think of a way to say it, so please forgive the clunkiness of the language, but it's almost like to adopt the PowerPoint as a roadmap for refreshing the urban forest management.
And taking first steps on that journey.
Exactly. So what we're kind of saying is, hey, the first part of what John was saying is, this is a great set of recommendations. Let's go forth. And part of that's going to be creating the project plan, executing the inventory. Part of it will be the ordinance, but because the ordinance is included in the PowerPoint, I think we can make a motion to say the PowerPoint sounds good as a roadmap for refreshing this process for the enforcement.
I guess if I had two requests coming from this deck going to the city council, one would be the more general, like, hey, do this thing, continue to fund, do the project plan, and then the specific, like, really consider this ordinance.
I wouldn't even bring those parts to the city council. I would just say, we should just do those, because the city, I mean, I can say from the perspective of who somebody's gonna be sitting there, I would rather, we know we need to do another project plan. I don't need to approve to go do.
Right,
Like, I don't need to approve to go do a project plan. I actually don't need. to
I
do
agree
it.
with that entirely,
So, but like the two
but I
things
think the
that,
city council needs to approve the
the ordinance, yeah, the two things.
the
two-
disclosure.
The two recommendations in the back, definitely.
Yeah.
But the other 5 steps in here, I think we could say, staff, please consider this as one way to
Yeah.
execute on the urban forest management priority.
So it's essentially like, one part of our vote would be recommendations to staff, like, take this, run with it.
Yep.
And to city council, these two
Exactly,
other
those two things.
pieces.
Yeah, and if we're comfortable bifurcating it that way, because there is gonna be extra work to build on your idea, there is gonna be extra work to prep for city council. But it's a narrower set of asks
Yeah.
to city council.
Exactly.
And
For
it's-
backup, she had those broken out between 2 slides, the ones for staff and the ones for city council.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way.
I like the idea of highlighting the ordinance. I think that's a very concrete thing that would have a deep impact.
Well, it's a twofold motion, if that's a thing,
Or maybe we do 2 motions.
or 2 motions.
Yeah,
One
why don't
one
we do-
is, but to Suzanne's point, page D411, where it says in summary, those five steps. That's the staff roadmap.
Yeah.
And then the following slide is the ordinance.
Yeah.
And both of those are. That could be 2 separate motions.
I would love the 2 separate motions. I think that gives the ordinance a life of its own,
Yeah.
and
And it may take a
we
little
can push
longer,
that
and we
forward.
could do a survey, and we could
Right.
call San Jose and go, yeah, I think it gives staff more flexibility. To implement the more project managing stuff, you can just go.
Yeah.
And then the more ordinance-based stuff, it might even take a little bit longer. You can think through a little bit more.
Yeah.
How does that feel? 2 motions, one around the ordinance and the recommendations for city council, and then one for staff to take those 5 steps and just go.
Yeah, that sounds super helpful to us.
Do we try to craft a motion to vote on?
Okay, I tried to, feel free to copy and paste. I was trying to make it easy on us.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Um,
that idea too, as Rachel's talking about. I like that idea too, because the ordinance thing and the detail behind that might require a couple more EQC conversations too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's- gives the flexibility to flush first.
Yeah, the whole discussion, the whole question about how do you socialize the ordinance is an interesting one. Yeah, at some level, it sounds like, sure, we'll do it, but we need to.
Could get some pushback. Oh,
Further-
were you typing it or?
I'm ready to type.
Oh,
I'm not supposed to be the one crafting
oh, sorry.
your motions.
Okay,
Can we go back to the typing from the last motion crafting session?
This was the last motion.
okay, so. Do you want me to craft
Our
it?
screen might be
Or I-
in yours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
What about something along the lines of the super simple, motion number one is staff uses the PowerPoint
There we
to,
go. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was like, why are you?
Okay, that-
Yeah, okay.
Motion. Oh, we're.
Mhm.
Support and fund to continue to support the production expansion of.
You want to do the last one first? That sounds like the easy one.
Mhm.
I mean, both
Yeah.
look good.
They look great.
Yeah, both look good.
Okay.
I don't know, but the
And I-
enact an ordinance it might be more like consider or looked into how to enact an.
But I think ultimately our recommendation is to enact an ordinance. How we do that will.
Would we say
Yeah.
direct staff to take
Right.
next
Right, right,
steps
something like that.
needed in order
Yeah.
to enact an ordinance?
Isn't, so, isn't this the thing that we're directly recommending to city council? Can't we just recommend to city council, no? Does it have to go to staff? I'm behind the 8 ball procedure wise.
I think what we've done is we've,
Rachel was saying like do a survey before it goes to council.
Yeah, we would do some level of work to.
Yeah.
Bring the idea to them.
I think what I
Okay.
would say though is, so we're now down the path of three separate motions. Forget about number one,
Oh,
because that
yeah.
was before. So I almost think maybe we combine 2 and 3. Because that's the part that goes to city council. And I don't want to lose the slide before it, which is the 5 things for staff.
Which I tried to, like in number 2 there, that's kind of like the high level of this. So, and I think our job, just to also be kind of procedurally, is like sometimes we give feedback to staff. But, and that's part of what we're doing here, but it's not, we're not giving any kind of direction to
Only
staff.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
staff can
that's-
only get direction from city council.
Right, that's fair.
So even like number 3, where it says direct staff, I would say, like, our job is to recommend to city council to,
Direct staff.
or just whatever, like,
Recommend that city council do this.
yeah,
Basically, recommend city council. Enact the ordinance that we propose.
Yeah.
Here I am, crafting motions.
yeah, that feels good to me. Both of those, I feel like capture, but Jeff, do you feel like number 2 captures the essence of like all of the detailed slides in the deck for staff? Or is that a third thing that we want to say, like?
No, I
here's
definitely
feedback
wouldn't.
For staff.
I definitely wouldn't make it a third thing. to- How about just to keep it super simple? In that phrase, it says including the creation of the urban forest management plan, just expand that a little bit, to say, including the creation of the urban forest management plan. Using subcommittee recommendations, which applies to PowerPoint. So something like that. I wanna acknowledge the work that went into the recommendations that are in the PowerPoint as a guide.
Yeah.
To your point, we're not saying you have to, but.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna.
That feels great to me.
Okay, I can read it. To recommend that city council continue to support the protection expansion of the urban forest, including the creation of the urban forest management plan using subcommittee recommendations as part of the annual budget process, with a particular emphasis on reducing canopy inequity across the city. Do we have a motion and a second on that one, or any amendments?
All motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Meyer and a second from Commissioner Headley to recommend that city council continue to support the protection and expansion of the urban forest. And the rest of what we have here, looking forward to reading that. We can take a vote, all in favor? 6 approved, 1 absent, so passed. Thank you. Number 3, I'll read out loud as well. To recommend that city council take the next steps to be able to enact an ordinance to require real estate disclosure from sellers to buyers upon transfer of property about our urban forest and heritage tree ordinance. We have a motion, second, or amendments?
Next time, the disclosure, how does it pertain to urban forest?
The disclosure would include something about Menlo Park's urban forest
Okay,
and the heritage tree ordinance.
got it.
It's like an information, it's like a little advertisement.
And do we want to add the specificity about the owner disclosing the number of trees on the property to this motion? Or do we want to say per the recommendations in our slide deck? Because I would like to see us specify that it isn't just here's a bunch of blather and you sign it. It's here's a bunch of blather and you got to fill in your little bit and then you sign it.
For real estate disclosure. Yeah, and I think our earlier conversation was number of heritage trees and other trees on the property. Or maybe the number of heritage and non-heritage trees on the property.
Big task that get to be.
I mean, that could be a bit too open, a bit, not heritage trees, like that's.
Again, if you're rich enough to own a giant piece of land in Menlo Park.
Big and tires.
Somebody to count the trees.
Richard, could we just take out to be able to? Just-
What does the current, deck say?
What's that?
Or you can just refer to the deck.
The-
The details.
Yeah.
Let's try to repeat what's in the deck.
Oh, it's not showing. it
It's,
yet.
yeah, it's not so specific in the deck. Yeah, it wasn't so specific, so I think, the specificity that we were going to felt good to.
So the motion can be about understanding what that ordinance would be, right? I mean, that's part of the next step is to enact, essentially to refine what the ordinance would be. So
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable if we don't spell out non-heritage trees, because that might be.
You could say
Number
including
of trees.
number of heritage and potentially non-heritage trees.
Perfect. Cause you can't get those 9.5-inch trees. Getting under the wire.
Sure. Or, yeah, neutral.
Yeah.
Does everybody feel?
Thank you for your, once again, excellent public typing.
Thank you, Neva speaking.
I'll move that we approve that motion, or I'll make that motion.
I'd be happy to second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Headley and a second from Commissioner Pellegrini apart to recommend that city council take the next steps to enact an ordinance to require real estate disclosures from sellers to buyers upon transfer of property about our urban forest, heritage tree ordinance, and number of heritage and potentially non-heritage trees on the property. All in favor? Okay, 6 in favor, 1 absent, so moved. Thank you.
Awesome. That feels like real work I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Earned our nature warrior merit badges for that.
What time would you like to return?
How long did I need? You ready for me? All right, fantastic. Welcome back, boys and girls. Item D5 on the agenda. Where we will review and discuss an approach for the Love Our Earth Festival. And I will turn it over to city staff to make the presentation.
Thank you. I'll give a brief background of the Love Our Earth Festival and share some resources we have for 2025 and some options. And staff were kind of mulling this over for a couple months now, and I was like, you know who would be really helpful at telling us what to do here. So I'm really looking for some feedback here. The kind of annual city celebration of Earth Day started in 2022 with the We Love Earth Festival at Flood Park. I think everyone in this room has been to these events where we're promoting climate awareness and sustainability through family-friendly activities, demonstrations, ability to connect with neighbors, vendors, community-based organizations. There's been plant-based market and food trucks, live entertainment, and all sorts of things that engage people of all interests, something for everyone. The event name changed to Love Our Earth Festival in 2023. And we kept that name through 2024. In 2024, the event was hosted at Bloom House in East Palo Alto. And we've enjoyed our partnership with our neighboring city. We've, in 2023, partnered with Atherton in East Palo Alto as well and hosted in Atherton at MA. And the first year was at Flood Park in Menlo Park. And so it's back to Menlo Park, our turn to host. And we have booked the Belhaven Community Campus for May 17th, 2025. I'm hearing that the rain was a bummer and that there's kind of a lot of things that take our attention in April, and that May might be a sunny time to convene our community. We've worked with Actera, Atherton, East Palo Alto, Menlo Spark, Peninsula Clean Energy, and 350 Silicon Valley. It's kind of our core organizing group, and these representatives from each of these agencies and community-based organizations would meet regularly to put on these productions, really starting in February of the year of the event, if not earlier. So this year we have $5,000 to be able to contribute to an event, and then we have approximately 4 hours per week, really starting now, of staff time until the event. And we're also excited to have use of the Belhaven Community Campus without kind of any fee rentals for that beautiful space. And we also have access to the table, chairs, canopies, and other equipment there. And so we're really excited to use the Belhaven Community Campus. 350 Silicon Valley received a grant from Peninsula Clean Energy, and they're able to provide 60 hours of one person's time to help us with the event, regardless of what date we choose. And Actera has a conflict on May 17th. So we would have to identify another date if we wanted to expand our partnership. So our options are to proceed with the Love Our Earth Festival with the city of East Palo Alto, 350 Silicon Valley, and potentially other partners on May 17th. Or we could look at some dates in April or May and try to find one that this group agrees on, that maybe Actera could also, be a partner with us on. It's my understanding that they don't have any resources identified quite yet, like they don't have a grant or anything. It would just be kind of their staff power, and their expertise is around plant-based food. Another idea we had was hosting smaller Earth Day events throughout the month if we wanted to do that, or we're open to other ideas as well. And so we can take time to discuss what you all think would be the most effective as far as engaging Menlo Park residents on our climate action plan and activities we want them to do at home and at work and in the community.
Great, so why don't we check to see if there's any clarifying questions before we take public comment?
Can we structure the discussion around it, just to number out the different pieces that you want input on, so that we don't forget?
The The biggest piece we wanna know, is if we should take time to kind of recalibrate the date and the reservation we have at BHCC, to bring in Actera, or if we should kind of continue forth with May 17th, since that date's already booked with BHCC. It doesn't conflict with any, kind of major holidays. And it's kind of a good time of year.
Can you, I mean, having been involved in various levels of this in all three of the previous. Can you clarify what Actera means by they can't be a partner? Does that mean they can't be part of the planning
Oh,
committee?
yeah.
Or can they turn up with some of their, can they table, or they can't even do that?
No, they have an event on May 17th there. It's a milestone event. They're celebrating a certain number of years of being an organization that evening.
And their footprint in previous years, I remember Flood Park, it was a little bit bigger, they were more involved in the planning and they helped with the cluster, the food-based stuff. I can't remember their footprint at MA,
It was just the plant-based food market.
but were they one table or would they did the market again?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Actera decision is. It's a multi-table section, or we call them zones, I think, of one
Yeah.
planning iteration, okay. Okay, so it's not, cause like losing one tabler.
Yeah.
Is different than losing somebody who could work a zone.
The whole sound.
Yeah, it's probably a good clarification. It's rather than say like, do we want to work with Actera? Obviously, we want to work with all our partners. It's do we want to have a really robust plant food market? And then potentially even, use some of our 5,000 to support Actera in delivering that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, if there's no other clarifying questions.
What were the other, so that's the big one, the date question and the Actera trade-off.
Mhm.
Were there other bits and bobs?
Yeah, in the format, if we still like the festival, like recognizing that we have about 4 hours a week of staff time and $5,000, is that the right approach for outreach for Earth Day?
Just to clarify, is that the total budget, or would we go on the fundraising jag that we did, but that's just Menlo Park's contribution that we
Exactly.
asked for $5,000 from each of the, or
If
whatever the number.
PC's contribution is through 350 Silicon Valley, so it's 60 hours of someone's time, no
That's-
materials.
That's a kind.
So I went to the MA and then high school in the Bloom House. The MA venue felt quite successful. The Bloom House was very cool. But besides being very cool, it seemed like a reasonable. Is that the general feeling? But it was just so darn cold.
It was just that, I mean, the rain was one part of it, I think kept people away at the beginning, please don't let me speak for it, but it was the wind coming, we were just talking about, before it came in, it was the wind coming off the bay that made it like, the wind chill was what made it a little miserable for a while. But other than that,
I mean, the location was a bit hard to get to. The MA event was, that had a lot of dynamic.
Yeah.
And it feels to me that the Bellhaven Community Center could have similar good dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a nice location, it's new, it has, I don't know, I mean, I'm just.
why don't we do this, that sounds more like discussion, it's okay, like, let's get public comment out of the way. and
Oh, yeah.
launch into.
Sorry, that's what we were.
That's all right,
already
yeah.
in discussion.
Okay, so the date and then the format, one event versus one.
Because we'll want to start game planning, honestly, this December.
All right.
And I think the city of East Palo Alto, too, which I neglected to share, is along for the ride, kind of, however we want to structure it, they're good partners.
Thank you. Why don't we see if there's any public comment, and then I think we can launch back into discussion.
Since there's nobody in the room, I won't make that call. If you're online and you'd like to make public comment, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. And I'll give you a moment to navigate to the button at the bottom of your screen or next to your name. And I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we can go into discussion.
Why don't we open?
So I think that the date Actera discussion plays into the event discussion. It's kind of, if we decide to stick with the date and sacrifice the Actera piece, then we've kind of answered that it's one event. But if we decide that we want to play with it in order to involve Actera, then we might change the format. And that's how I would frame it. I have no opinion about it.
One thing, just having run events for a good chunk of my career, the anxiety around dates. The first big thing for most events is money, the second is date and location. So having a date and location, like, you know, that's the major relief point, actually this early in the process too.
Yeah.
So my instincts are, I love Actera, don't get me wrong. And I think they add a lot with the food-based part of stuff. But like to go back into a little bit of an anxiety loop with like giving up a date and giving up a potential location. It feels. And again, could we find potentially a replacement partner to do some of the food-based stuff is another kind of thought.
I'll share that Actera, so there's no hard feelings, so we don't have to stress about that part of it. One of the things I was thinking is we leverage, we can have more kind of city department ownership, and our library community services offers plant-based food at their events, like the Juneteenth event had plant-based food vendors. So I think there's an opportunity maybe to explore with library community services.
There's also the strength of the first one was the sort of committee and then the super volunteers. So like Cheryl. And is there a committee already starting to form and a plan to engage, like, because if you turn Cheryl loose on finding food vendors, there would be no worry, right?
Cheryl Schaff.
Yes, sorry, Cheryl Schaff. So, you know, Actera is a wonderful partner. I've worked with them for a lot of, Lauren's a friend, like, it's not about Actera, it's about, could we get the same kind of thing, a different route, and keep the security of the date location, or just having that big box checked.
Yeah.
Is really.
That's my inclination as well.
Yeah.
Keep the date, the location, because I think the date likely to be sunny and warm, but not too hot.
Yeah.
It's a great, beautiful location. I'm assuming there's indoor and outdoor we can do.
There
Which is
is,
nice.
and there's the patio areas too, so we can maybe still retain some of the parking for visitors.
Yeah,
And it's fairly big,
Nice.
because like
Yeah.
Juneteenth, that lot, you know, you can do 20 tables, you can do 40 tables. It's really
and
flexible.
you could also have the food trucks. And I'm thinking about the food truck events that happened in the Caltrain station. I don't know how plant-based they were, but it seems like there's lots of food trucks and we could bring different options in. Plant-based.
So question on when you talk about the potential alternatives for in Bellhaven, you have the May 31st in there. Is that a may work, or is that it is available?
At this point, it would be unclear if it's still available. It was available as of publishing this agenda. So May 31st.
Is that,
Do we think that doing the 17th instead of the 31st makes a big enough of a difference to, if we could get 31st and Actera, would that be preferable to 17th?
Does anyone have a sense on school schedules?
isn't that Memorial Day? It's the weekend before is Memorial Day. And school is usually still in session, but
I mean, my thoughts, if we're gonna change the day, are, I mean, you guys are talking about, like, the weather, it's not very good in April, but Earth Day is 22nd of April. And it's like, we're doing this Earth event, having it around Earth Day, makes sense, but weather is also a big important thing.
And Zach reminded me, like, I remember. I can't remember now which one it was, but didn't Atherton peel off last year and do the sheep in the field and all,
Yeah.
like, it was just. So.
And they'll be
part-
doing that again too.
Yeah, so part of the challenge I remember with it being like close to the day proper is there's a lot of competing events.
Yeah.
which was a downside. I don't think it really. Well, I don't know. Did
It's
it
a
throw-
downside for the vendors.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember that being a conflict.
And also in the same way that you sort of end up celebrating your birthday for a month, this could be Earth Month.
Earth season.
Earth season.
All spring.
Well, one of the powers of this thing is that like, if, I know you're not asking super specifically, but about smaller events versus a big event. I think one of the powers of this thing, each of the 3 years has been the size of the scope and the, you know, just the draw. And the third one was the smallest. MA was the largest. I think all of them have been successful in their own way because of the scale.
I think so too. And I think it takes quite a bit of effort to do a small event.
Yeah.
So it might take more effort to do many small events versus one large event that we could just really put our focus on.
And the calendar coordination, remember Arbor Day? I mean, this is
Oh,
not
yeah.
from Arbor Day, but like there were 3 events going on that were competing. We
Yeah.
didn't have any idea. There were like 2 people that turned up and it was because we didn't know there was something going on over here. So
Yeah.
smaller adds complexity for multiple reasons. Bigger seems logically like it would be harder, but you get a larger group of volunteers who come in and just.
Yeah.
You know, just get it done.
Yeah.
And the other point is the publicity.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
scatter it apart and you
Yeah.
don't get as much.
Yeah, you definitely get the dedication of a reporter to turn up. I think we've had that all through.
On the conflict with Actera on the 17th, is that because they are doing another event of their own?
That evening.
So we would have conflict with people attention.
Well, if people from our event wanted to attend the Actera event, they could do both. Because our thing is usually in the morning, early afternoon,
Yeah.
and theirs is in the evening, but it might be hard for the
We
food
we
truck.
wrapped up
vendors.
around 3 each time or something like that, I can't remember. But
But theirs is a celebration of their organization, and so it might be a different,
So
Yeah.
different audience.
yeah, they're like, we're turning 25, right?
I'm not as worried about Tara, because they have the expertise to coordinate the food zone and they know the vendors and all that, but knowing Lauren, like she would be totally happy to turn those contacts over and she wouldn't wanna, it's not a competition to her, right? So I think she would say, well, you know, she might even do e-intros and stuff, so I feel like we're not losing, but it's a shame, but we're not losing much by losing Actera because they would help our event be successful, I think.
And between that and the library and community services group. Okay,
And everybody in this room.
indeed.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was thinking about too, the attendees being conflicting, I think we want to try to get folks who are already super engaged with. Actera and all our nonprofits, and we want to get the folks who are newer to these programs and initiatives.
So how's everybody feel, just for the sake of time, and I'm not trying to rush any conversation, but how's everybody feel about sticking with the date? You know, asking Actera to help and all that, wishing them well for their thing, like that's one decision you're looking for, does everybody feel okay with that?
That's our recommendation.
Did you have anything to add, John? I know you.
I had other thoughts, but the group's going another direction, so.
But your thoughts are about
Please
that.
do.
Yeah, but now we're super curious.
I mean, I understand the sort of challenges with the date. Actera's been a part of the events every year and I really value their partnership. I think they bring a lot to the planning and organizing and promotion. So before we started talking about it, my suggestion was gonna be we find a date that works for Actera. But I don't think that's the direction the group wants to go, so.
They're okay with all these dates, so what I could do is ask BHCC if they're still available May 31st. I'm hearing May over April.
Yeah, I kind of looked at those
I was
dates,
leaning
it's
towards
like
April,
east,
just because it's Earth Month.
well, I
But
was,
if it's the 26th, that's gonna hit right on everybody else's Earth Day, is that right?
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But we've faced that before. And
I'd be okay if we could. It's mostly the only reason I brought the point was to remove the anxiety of having to go back and revisit the date. But if it's a quick thing to say, cause I would probably be more inclined to May 31st. I wouldn't do Easter weekend or Mother's Day weekend, cause that creates natural conflicts for people
Yeah.
not turning up, but either the 26th or the 31st. I don't know, how much anxiety does it create for you guys to have to go back and give up
It's-
one date and look at another
It's
date?
not much anxiety. I'm curious, spring breaks, is April 26th bump up against spring breaks?
I mean, it's been an issue in the past. I don't know what it is for 2025.
I'm gonna do a search.
Um,
So maybe to modify that, could plan A, B, to check those other dates.
and then which would be the preferred, May 31st or April 26th?
I think that's the April 26th runs into spring break. The end of spring break.
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
And Liz made this slide deck too and spent a lot of effort on Earth Day, in previous years. So thank you, Liz. Let me,
Yeah, if it doesn't create budget for staff to have to go back and give up a date, and look at a new date. then I definitely prefer having Terry as part of it too.
Okay, I'm looking at the spring break dates for the Menlo Park City School District. It's April 7th to the 11th. So they're off. So weekends on either side would be bad, I think. And then for the high school MA, it's same week actually.
Okay.
So
So we don't know about the private schools,
I did not do a search on the private schools.
but we'd be doing it all day. There's so
Yeah.
many different schools.
okay, so preference to look for April 26th first, then May 31st, then May 17th. Is our current date.
And then no, May 17th is a C and you can say Terry.
What date was it again this past year? Just thinking of the rain and that.
I don't recall, but I just think weather's so unpredictable these days that we can't really have any idea what the weather's gonna be like.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be a heat wave on May 31st.
Yeah, it was April 13th.
we do also have the ability to be totally indoors too.
I love the location.
Yeah, that's handy.
A great location for it.
Good, okay. Okay, and then we'll probably do another checkpoint in a couple months just to update and maybe get some further recommendations on how to spend that $5,000, because I think we'll have to scale back from maybe where we've been in past years because of PCE's contribution being scaled back so significantly. So we might not have,
There's no opportunity to get support from PCE outside of 350 Silicon Valley?
I sent them a note requesting, so we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, they have kind of their sponsorship commitments that they make, and
Yeah,
yeah, there's a formula there. But maybe you have more insight.
not at this moment.
Okay.
Okay, that's well, I don't think we don't really need a motion, do we? I mean, I think that you were looking for guidance.
That's fine. We're good.
So, right, everybody feels okay with that, then maybe we can move to the final item on the agenda, D6. Which is an update on compliance with Senate Bill 379, which is permitting for residential solar energy systems. And city staff will make the presentation.
Okay. So this one came as a request from the Distributed Energy Resources Ad Hoc Subcommittee as some informational item that they could have prior to making their recommendation in January. As we think about how we enable and facilitate residents to install solar and battery, and how we're in compliance with Senate Bill 379 for streamlined permitting of those systems. So passed in 2022, SB 379, Wiener is the residential solar energy systems permitting, establishes requirements for California cities and counties related to the implementation of an online automated permitting platform such as Solar App Plus for the installation of new solar energy systems. It's a web-based portal that automates plan review, produces code compliant approvals, and allows a jurisdiction to issue permits in real time for residential solar energy systems, as well as solar energy systems paired with energy storage. Additionally, we have to report to the Energy Commission annually on the number of permits issued. We received a grant from the state to be able to integrate Solar App Plus with our online permitting system, Acela. And it was quite complex to be able to change the workflows in that. We also gained some cool skills like learning how to use DocuSign through that portal, which will help us with future permit streamlining efforts. And residential solar reviews, while they can take this real-time permit issuance, they can also go the traditional pathway of having a plan check engineer review the application and issue a permit without the third-party vendor that charges, I think, $50 per application. So we've established our process. I think it had to be live September 1, 2024. And it's up and running in Acela. And it's compliant with SB 379. Our website is not yet updated. So if you're going to our website to learn more about it, that information is coming soon. But if you're in our Acela permitting portal, you'll see all the steps and you'll be able to submit your solar app information there. So eligible residential PV projects that meet the following criteria are single family, roof mounted systems, new PV systems. This is important. You can't get the real-time permit issuance if you're adding panels to an existing system. And then there's some further specifications for what sort of projects are eligible. Our fire district still reviews the proposed solar photovoltaic system installation for compliance to the 2022 California Fire Code. And then once it's installed, there's still an inspection to finalize the project. And so how this works is the solar contractor, whoever's pulling the permit, if they choose to use Solar App Plus, they would go into Solar App Plus, pay $50 and put their system's size. And I think a lot of it's really AI generated. They've built out the models, and they'll, without kind of having anyone look at it, know that it meets the compliant model. Eduardo probably knows more about what that backend looks like, and it spits out a kind of reference number. The applicant puts that reference number into our plan check system. And then they're issued a permit in real time. So this works for like the contractor who's pulling permits on a Saturday, ready to install on a Sunday or whatever it may be. And then the traditional pathway is you upload your plan into Acela, and then our plan check engineer looks at the plan, goes back and forth if there's any compliance issues, and then issues you the permit. So this really just puts the compliance review more at the end of the process. So our plan check engineer is still reviewing the plans. You just have your permit, you can start installing. If the plan check engineer notices anything weird, they notify the contractor and get that resolved. But we haven't had any applications yet. Our contractors are preferring to use kind of the traditional pathway for now. Like I mentioned, our website's being updated, but there is more information generally on Solar App Plus's site. And we do still have information about, installing solar and getting permits for that through our traditional process online. And so I was just kind of the quick update. We can go into any clarifying questions now.
Any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take a look on that?
I had an exchange with Rachel about this. We can talk about that in the discussion later.
Yeah, and my big question is, is this for awareness? Are you looking for input? I was a little unclear about what.
Yeah, it's just for awareness, as it informs the DER subcommittee, for ideas they might have to further build on what we're already doing to facilitate solar installation or make it easier. So the DER subcommittee's focus is really on how we can, well, I don't want to speak, but
for now.
This is kind of good contextual information for what the city's already doing to be compliant with the state and promote, distribute energy resources for single family homes.
And then is there an outreach plan? Man, I know you said you had 0 so far. Is there a plan to do a little more proactive outreach, or is it just gonna be, it's there on the page, and if you need it, the page, but it's there in the system, and then if you need it, it's there. So,
That's kind of the, yeah, it's kind of a contractor facing
Okay,
tool.
yeah, okay.
However, if that's an idea, it would be, I think, you could share it today, but maybe the rest of the group could marinate and share during the DER item.
So I just think
Yeah,
if we were
one
gonna
of the
share with
thoughts
the
about-
contractor community, yeah,
One of the thoughts with the DR was to advertise this more widely.
to like the contractor community, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is, they might not have adopted it because they were.
Yeah.
they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, we can talk a bit more about the discussion.
So maybe why don't we move to public comment on this item, if that's okay? with you?
Sure. If you're online and you'd like to make public comment, you can hit the raise hand button. We'll be able to unmute you. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So we can close public comment.
Let's take one while you open it for EQC discussion.
So the city's getting the application, but they're not choosing to use this system.
Yeah,
And do you have any idea like how many applications have come in since the system went live and what their feedback is on why they're not using it?
yeah, I'm not sure how many. I asked the same thing in conversation and they didn't know anecdotally either, so it required kind of looking up the data. The primary reason I think is the extra cost to Solar App Plus and kind of establishing that account. We have a plan check engineer, John, who reviews these all in-house, and so he provides almost a real-time issuance, you know, within the business week usually. So I think for contractors, it's simpler for them to do the process they've been doing. That's anecdotal from what he shared.
Is this process supposed to speed up the permitting process?
Yeah, so you'd get the permit in real time. And you'd be able to start construction in real time, rather than waiting for compliance review.
So what's the cost of the solar, of using, to the contractor of using solar?
$50.
50, that's for application? So I mean, the feedback that I was giving is, so I poked around a bit in different places and, I talked with different, jurisdictions about this. Several of them said, we're not seeing, significant traction on the solar app. So I don't know how useful it is, honestly, but I believe that the current setup is not going to work anyhow, because I don't think anybody is requesting solar installation without storage. It just doesn't make economic sense. I mean, with the new
So
NBD,
this one you can't do. the
well,
storage
you
piece.
can, but the way we have it configured, we cannot. I mean, that was a conversation I was having with
Yeah.
Rachel. I went to Solar App Plus. Solar App didn't use to support the storage, but last year I think they added the storage. So I poked around and pretty much all the cities in California are doing solar and storage. We are not doing.
Oh,
I
in
don't
terms
know
of how we're
why.
implementing.
I don't know why.
It's
We are-
important to daylight through
Yeah.
this, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it said that it was solar and storage in the presentation you gave.
Yeah, but not in implement. Sorry, Rachel. Yeah.
No, go for it.
I mean, what, I asked that question, the presentation said so, but in what Rachel told me is that we chose not to do. Storage in the implementation, when you get a contract, when a jurisdiction gets a contract with Solar App, it can choose. To do either only solar or solar and storage. And we chose to do only solar. But, so regardless of whether the contractors will do it or not, nobody's going to do it moving forward because nobody's installing all the solar now.
That makes sense.
So, and besides, my question is, I don't think that that's what the law says. I believe that the law requires us to do real-time permitting on solar and storage. But I asked Rachel and Rachel asked around, and I think that the answer was no, that we're choosing a different interpretation.
Mm.
But, I mean, there were like 120 cities that are doing solar and storage, and there are like 6 cities that are not doing, that are only doing storage, solar, that we are one of those.
Hmm.
So it seems like there's a risk. Now, that said, it's not clear to me whether contractors will actually use this thing.
Right.
Because if they know how to do it, I mean, it's like, where are they going to learn a new way to do it? That's a different question.
Well, I'd imagine if demand sort of trebled, quadrupled, I mean, I could see the benefit, but it sounds like the pace of installation is able to be handled by the office, essentially, right?
Right, I mean, with the new changes with the CPUC, this was designed for the volume that we were having before the CPUC
Right.
screwed everything
Exactly.
out, right?
And so now that that's turned into a dribble,
So
then,
maybe it's not needed.
well, maybe we just need to get the CPUC.
Maybe we-
Do you know why the city chose not to do solar and storage, solar app?
Yeah, so what we've done is basically change the order of when we do the compliance review, and I think there was concerns about batteries in garages and the I don't know if setback is the right word, but the placement of where they can be and realizing, yeah, like when you're doing your compliance review after someone's maybe already started the install, that you're gonna come in and say, ooh, that's wrong, you have to tear it out.
Mm.
Or, you know, reconfigure it or submit another plan, and that it would end up having more delays.
Mm.
Because I think they're seeing that a lot of issues with batteries.
Yeah, so I called 3 cities and one of them was Sunnyvale. And Sunnyvale told me that they for about a week and a half, or a couple of weeks, they turned off the storage because of that. Right, that they were getting incorrect readings from Solar App,
Yeah,
but then they talked with Solar App and they fixed, they have to be 3 feet apart, and so they resolved that.
well, that's good to hear, because I do think that was part of it, the concern about solar apps.
Yeah, and I think that Solar App did have some issues at some point.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, so it's good to know. It just was an interesting exercise to try to chase down why.
Well, I think it was really valuable that you took the time to call the other cities who aren't doing it either and found that some actually are or have overcome some struggles. I think it'd be interesting to see a recommendation maybe in January for how we could take this and either improve it if you think it needs improving, or if there's another way we could further make it
I
easier.
think that the use case that would have high volume
Mhm.
would be if Solar App was able to deal with adding the storage to an existing solar system. But that's a more complicated one, but there is a lot of potential in there. I did some looking at the database for our permits, and I identified I think 1,000 installations in Menlo Park that have solar, that they don't have a permitted storage. Including my house, right? I have solar and I don't have solar. So it would be nice if we could facilitate that conversion.
Mhm.
That's a more complicated.
Talk about permitting. Permit streamlining would be really important on a number of levels, and I think that's what was an attempt to do. And there's even discussions about could Solar App cover heat pump water heater as well, to streamline that process. But there's just some discussion on how effective it would be and how much it would help or not. But it's interesting to hear this feedback on just the solar aspect of it.
Yeah, I use the opportunity that I was talking with those people. So I talked with Sunnyvale, Anderson, Foster City, and Sunnyvale and Anderson. I the person I was talking to had enough time, and I said, oh, by the way, what do you guys do about heat pump water heaters? And they say, in Anderson, that's by Reading, they provide the permit over the counter. You
Yeah.
just go there and they give you.
Sunnyvale does that too, for water heaters.
And then Foster City, I think they said, oh, we do it very quick. But I agree, that would be a win.
Why don't we check in, since that was mostly informational, it sounds like there's no motion or action.
We don't.
No.
Is there any other discussion on this topic?
No.
So, for the sake of time, why don't we round it out with reports and announcements and start with, that.
Yeah, well, reports, announcements, and then we have our info item too. I don't know, Liz, if you want to start, all right, Ken.
Yeah, I could start. Let me. You can see my husband in the back. So what's my update on? I wanted to update on zero emission landscaping ordinance vouchers. We are fully subscribed to that program and we are about to wrap it up this week and see if we have any leftover funds. If we do, then we'll go ahead and try and expend that money. But it was a really successful program. I think we had 56 applicants. And so the next time I come back, I will have a more specific on how many residents and how many landscapers there were. And then I also wanted to update on the home upgrade program. Our PCE or Peninsula Clean Energy launched officially territory-wide yesterday. And we launched a internal city application, and we posted it on our city digest. And then we also reached out to Habitat also did some canvassing and we got some leads there. So we sent it to about 30 emails. And today, as of today, I was able to help people schedule their in-home assessment. Just in the last 2 days, we scheduled 8 already, and we almost filled up like all the availability. So I think we're gaining traction, and the program's going to be pretty successful. So we're excited about that.
That's huge, Liz.
Yeah, and Liz has been providing monthly reports to city council, and our next one should be, I think, really telling on if we're gonna be able to spend the money or if we need to pivot or how we're doing. But I think we're both amazed at how much interest there is, so.
On the pivot, just remind me, the pivot is to open up to the city, right? We're focused on Bellhaven for now, but then the pivot is to say.
To serve renters potentially,
Okay.
but that would be maybe a third pivot to open up citywide. Okay, thank you, Liz. Some quick updates from me, since this is our chair's last meeting. Our vice chair will be facilitating kind of future meetings until we have a fully staffed commission. Recruitment will start in December, and so we'll really look to you all to refer folks and maybe do some of that outreach to get all of our districts represented well here. And we're expecting an appointment in late January or February of our new commissioner. And then we can vote on a chair and vice chair at that time.
Can I add one tiny thing to that?
Yeah.
If that's all right, just your experience. So I've actually talked to somebody who I think could be good. But the recommendation is, so I'll level the playing field because I think we all know how it works. Recommend that they meet city council members, because if you remember, we were all, it's really, it's not us that gets to decide, right? I mean, it seems like we get to, but we don't. So, people who are strangers are at a pretty distinct disadvantage versus people who make the time to go and meet with city council members. So,
Yes, absolutely. And I know city council members, though, also reach out to members of the EQC. So it doesn't hurt an applicant to reach out to each of us too, to learn more about what the work actually is. And
oh, sure.
if we have a good conversation, we can advise,
Yeah, I was thinking more like people you already know who you
Yeah.
would want to maybe.
encourage
The
them.
right, yeah, but just make
Yes.
sure they take that extra step of
I agree.
reaching out
100%.
to city council members to be known.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to encourage participation from District 1?
Yeah, so we've talked to the clerk about that, and there's kind of rules around recruitment and like providing the same kind of level of outreach to every district. And so we certainly can send it to, you know, partners and organizations that we think are of interest, and we can make referrals. And so I think that's where we would really look to the commission to do some of that lifting, because we are kind of bound by rules.
And
We
there's
can
a
maybe
CRC
go there tomorrow. We
I was
can
gonna
talk
say
about it.
tomorrow from 6 to 8 is the Bellhaven.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, so let's just, I think I'm still in that period where I can
Please.
promote. I don't get sworn until then.
Yeah, so recruitment will start in December. We expect an appointment in January, early February. And I'll be missing that meeting tomorrow. That'll be the first time missing, so thank you for attending that. On December 4th, there's a Bay Area Air Quality Management District Board meeting to report on the progress of the appliance rules requiring all new water heaters and space heating systems to be zero NOx. I think it's an important meeting to attend if you are interested in those rules, to express support or other things you'd like to share publicly there. And then we also got kind of what I felt like was a cryptic email from the CEC about their building performance strategy report and recommendations report, Senate Bill 48. They listed out a variety of stakeholder engagement opportunities, but no clear events or links. But I think they are trying to reach stakeholders who care about building performance. And we can include the link to their listserv in the minutes. But it sounds like they will have some upcoming workshops related to that. That's all I've got.
Excellent. Any updates from?
Yeah, three quick ones. I know it's late, sorry. Just first of all, congratulations to Menlo Spark for their groundbreaking completion of fully electrifying a 6-unit affordable housing building in Bellhaven. So those residents all have completely electric systems and air conditioning for the first time. And yeah, it's the first existing multifamily building to be fully electrified in San Mateo County. So that was a really just kudos to Brian Schmidt and Angela Evans and even Diane Bailey, who was involved from the very beginning. And just wanted to shout them out. They're also a candidate for the Sustainable San Mateo County Green Building Award, competing against Bellhaven Community Campus. So a friendly competition, which I think is awesome that Menlo Park has 2 nominees. So that's really cool. And then Measure U, the Menlo Park City School District bond passed, required a 55% vote. It got 72%. It's a $124 million bond. And that bond allows them to even get up to like another $28 million in grants. So it could be a total of $150 million to the school district to improve their facilities. And one of their focuses is to exchange fossil fuel equipment for electric and getting air conditioning into those classrooms for the first time. So in line with that, the school district passed a resolution on November 14th. It's the resolution on climate resilience and sustainability, a time for action. And I'll just highlight a couple things that are involved in that. By 2030, they want all campus buildings to be electrified, including HVAC. Upon end of life, if not sooner, they want to replace fossil fuel dependent equipment, increase EV charging, increase the electric buses and vehicles that the district uses, reduce the use of single-use plastics. There's other items in here that are part of the resolution. And they also are going to present a draft climate action plan to the board in June of 26, with the goal of getting it approved by November of 26. Cool. That's all I got.
I'll add a couple of really quick ones. I'm glad John mentioned the school district, because the bond was phase 1 of Kristen's vision for that. the resolution and the actual climate action plan is phase two. And that's a multi-year process. I think all of you would be welcome to participate in different ways because they're really looking for liaisons with the city. John and I are on her sustainability group, as is Angela Evans, but I think they're looking for a lot of experts. So if you have an affinity for working with that district, and then I think Gina will potentially do some of the same at Ravenswood. It'll be interesting to see how much mirroring goes on there. Two other things that are related, and I wanted to say thank you actually. One was thank you for last night for Eduardo and John and Brian turning up for the downtown discussion. For those who are not familiar, you know, there's the building going on, there's as part of the housing element, there's proposals to build affordable housing in downtown. And why it's important for a group like this to be aware of is it's transit oriented, it reduces vehicle miles traveled, it, you know, the buildings can be green and sustainable. This is the holy grail of intersection between climate, transportation, and housing. So I would encourage everybody to pay a lot of it, even though it's a little bit of a rough tumble at the moment. I would say be paying attention to that. Please turn up, please comment. I wouldn't want to lose the climate angle in discussions like that. And then another one that's very similar is there's a big discussion going on with Coleman and Ringwood. And you know, that seems like a public works street improvement thing, but it's about bike lanes, it's about child safety, it's about, you know, so climate in what I'm learning, having gone through this journey over the last year, is climate intersects with a lot of this stuff, and our voices, EQC members, are important contributions to that debate, and they are debates. So yeah, I would just say, please kind of look at that kind of stuff and don't be shy about jumping in and offering an EQC kind of perspective.
So building on the downtown topic yesterday, I was there. I've been attending meetings on Zoom. I think it made a big difference to be there physically. And the anti motion group was very heavily represented in the event, and I think that people that called in were more in favor of development, but it being there physically made a difference. So yes, I mean, it's a pain to have to go there and all of that, but I think it made a difference.
There were 80 people in the room.
Wow.
It was crowded.
Yeah,
So-
How did it break down in terms of passion
Oh, it was like 90% against
because of the impact on the small business?
yeah, there's a lot of work.
there were multiple issues. It was a complex situation, but
But I guess, yeah, and I'm not saying, you know, you're gonna feel good about wading into some of those debates on that side of it, but the climate side, just like, you know, you wouldn't think the schools will get involved in Coleman and Ringwood, but it's being positioned as a school safety thing. And then the bike advocates are saying it's good for the climate. And so I guess I'm just trying to make the point of, you can sit there and watch the roughness of the hardcore debate, but then also having people remember, oh, well, we're doing this partially because we don't want people in their cars, because parking is a big issue, like, you know, so anyway, I don't wanna, it's getting late, but I would just encourage you to kind of keep an eye on things like that, because the climate voices matter.
it's also an opportunity to engage with people that we may not normally engage with. And just being there, it makes it, I think it makes it.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. Reporting out on the electric home tour, which happened this Saturday after our last EQC meeting. So there were 36 homes across San Mateo and Santa Clara counties that were opened up to the community. And there were 700 visits
Oh, wow.
and over 400 unique visitors. Yeah, so I guess on average, people visited 3 homes. And in the follow-up survey, they found that 56% of the respondents were interested in replacing appliances before the end of life, which is good. And 31% were extremely likely to install an HVAC system or a heat pump water heater in the next 3 years. So I think it makes a difference. to come and see and to talk to homeowners who've done it. So it was really fun. So if any of you are thinking about participating in the future years, I highly recommend. Step one. I support you in that.
They're on their way.
Okay.
Cool. Well,
Thanks to you.
why don't we move to the final item? Apologies, I thought that was our last thing, but there's an informational item. They're transmitted to the EQC and staff's efforts to provide updates. Informational items are not action items, however, city council staff or members of the public may ask questions or make comments. Are there questions or comments from the EQC on informational item F1, the EQC work? So you're not gonna present, I think it was just part of the pack,
Just,
right?
yeah. So we just say that and then any questions or comments from this group? And then we can open up F1 for public comment online. If you have a comment or question on the EQC work plan, you can raise your hand. We can unmute you. Seeing none, we can close public comment and we can move to item G.
All right, I think that means we are adjourned.
Right.
How did the,